Let's do this thing. Hello, everybody, and welcome to ATP Insights, where we cover the most important tech stories in Asia. Today is Monday, the 17th of August, 2026. Let's get right to it. As always, there is a lot to cover. I want to talk about Unitree and China's humanoid robot gold rush. This will not be the first time we have spoken about Unitree on the show, but I wanted to follow up because they did an IPO. And again, as always, we have another great lineup of guests today. We're going to be joined by David Roy Hardoon, the MD and head advanced AI at Accenture, which should be awesome, to discuss how autonomous and sovereign AI will reshape financial institutions and enterprise operations. We're also going to be joined by Marijke, who very politely helped me pronounce his name, Marijke Timmers, founder and director at The Marketing Collective, to talk about how agentic AI can turn marketing strategy into scalable execution for small businesses. Following that, we're going to welcome one of our favorite guests, David Irecki, Chief Technology Officer for APJ at Boomi, to discuss how governed agentic AI can help enterprises turn autonomous AI from an operational risk into a secure, accountable business infrastructure. Next, we're going to talk to Haoyang Wu, founder at AgenticHire, to cover how AI-powered candidate assessment can help identify stronger talent and reduce the cost and friction of hiring. Gaurav Keerthi is going to join us, founder and CEO at StrongKeep Cybersecurity. We love conversations about how AI is being involved in the cybersecurity business. And Julia Filobokova, CEO and co-founder at Sabai Protocol. I'll have to ask her why we call it Sabai. Will talk to us about how real-world asset tokenization can change the way businesses finance, manage, and distribute ownership of physical assets. And finally, Alister Wood, founder at VisitUs, will join us to talk about how intelligent workplace management technology can help businesses make physical workplaces safer, more efficient, and easier to operate. And before we get to all of our guests and some news, let's talk about our presenting sponsor, Twilio. So Twilio is amazing. And Twilio is the secure and scalable platform to build unbelievable customer engagement without the complexity, with the AI-driven workflows you need to connect. They are trusted by over 300,000 businesses. It's the platform that simply makes more possible. Visit Twilio.com to start building today. Okay, let's get to some news. I mentioned we want to talk about Unitree and China's humanoid robot gold rush. Let's just jump right into this. Unitree's IPO, clearly, and we didn't warn about it, but we cited that this was going to happen, has become one of the clearest signs yet that China's humanoid robot boom has moved beyond sort of, hey, I think we should invest in this thing, to going right directly to the public markets. The company priced 40.45 million shares at $22.37 each, give or take on the exchange rate, raising about almost $1 billion, $905 million, while issuing only, and this is becoming trendy, it feels like to me, only 10% of its larger share capital. That puts its IPO valuation above $8.9 billion, roughly $9 billion. Okay, if you just want to round it, I'm into rounding today. Retail demand. I always say this when things surprise me, but like, sit down for this. Retail demand exceeded the shares available by more than 8,000 times. Yeah, I just want you to hear that and believe it. 8,000 times, a star market record. And the probability of a retail investor receiving allocation was about 0.018%. It's really small. The likelihood of somebody trying to get an allocation there was small. And this is like an important distinction, right? As of August 17th, which is today, the extraordinary numbers relate to the IPO subscription, right? Not to the first day of trading. Reuters reported on August 14th that Unitree was expected to begin trading during the week of August 17th. So that's this week. What day is today? As I said, Monday, right? The 17th. And one of the things that makes this really, really interesting to me is that Unitree, it's on the star market, right? So it's not on the main market there, but it's already has a substantial operating business underneath the excitement of these humanoid robots. And again, if you look at the thumbnail to this episode, you can see that's a real picture of a real humanoid robot from a real company called Unitree, right? They have real revenue as well, which always excites me when a company that actually lists on a stock market has real revenue. And that's actually revenue positive or income positive. Revenue reached $250 million, $252 million in 2025. And that was up more than 300% year on year. So not only are investors interested in this company, but consumers, not individuals, but business consumers are actually really interested in finding ways to work with Unitree. And if I remember correctly, if my facts serve me correctly, the experiment that's taking place at Haneda Airport, I think for some of the baggage handling, is being done and conducted by some of these Unitree robots. So they're being tested there too as well. The company was also profitable, although depending on like which, what's the word here, which protocol you use to determine like profitability and income, different accounting rules, right, produce different profit figures. The Associated Press cites overall profit above $41 million, while the Shanghai Stock Exchange materials cites $87.5 million, give or take. Let's just call it somewhere in the middle. It's 60-something million dollars of profit attributable to shareholders, excluding non-recurring items. Now, here's where things get super interesting to me, because a lot of these companies that make robots, and we've done some recordings with some robot companies that are in Singapore as well, and so far that particular company, I don't remember the name off the top of my head, excuse me, is making sort of not domestic robots, but robots for airports. You've seen them, actually. If you've been in the Singapore airport, you've seen these robots. They're very simple. They look like this little bump. It just kind of like goes around the airport and it cleans the floors. And the other interesting thing that the founder of that company told me was he's not out there trying to take away the jobs of people, the cleaners, the janitors, okay, and the people that are cleaning up the tables, the bathrooms, and the floors in the airport. What he's trying to do is he's trying to create friends for them, because the airport's there, the airport there in Singapore has had a hard time actually hiring people to do that. So he's trying to make their jobs easier. They manage the robots as opposed to being replaced by these robots. Anyway, humanoids for Unitree are also becoming, Martin, I can hear you, by the way, are also becoming the center of the company. They accounted for 51.5% of Unitree's main business revenue in the first 9 months of 2025, compared with 27.6%, so almost double, in 2024. Unitree also says that it shipped more than 5,500 humanoid robots during 2025 and held 32%, or a little bit more, of the global market. The important part of this, to me, is that, well, it's multifaceted, actually. Unitree is a real company making real products that's like operating above the hype. Okay, a lot of the stuff that we talk about, particularly in the humanoid robot market, is like, these things are coming. And I actually was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and they were making fun of humanoid robots, particularly in the context of artificial intelligence, which we'll talk about in a bit, because I have a view on this as well, where they fit into. And again, if you look at the thumbnail for today's episode, it says humanoid robots are the platform. Okay, because I strongly believe that that's the case, and I can get to that too. Unitree gives public investors relatively direct exposure to what I like to call embodied artificial intelligence, because that AI is embodied inside these robots, right? And this company is already manufacturing robots at a and I was going to say at a humanoid scale, at a meaningful scale. But I already said they sold 5,500 of these things. Just think about the fact that there's very little hype that you've heard of about this company, and yet a great execution here, and real usage, real revenue, and actually real profits as well. And you can argue about, well, is it $40 million in profit or $80 million in profit? Part of me doesn't care, as it could be $2 in profit as far as I'm concerned. But what it means is people are willing to pay more than the expenses it costs them to build those robots, to buy and deploy and to test those robots. And a lot of them are happening with embodied artificial intelligence. Now, at the same time, we are still early in the commercialization of these. We may suppose that a lot of the purchases of these robots, and I don't have the final figures on them, is for some kind of testing. But again, how different is that than just like artificial intelligence testing that goes on in big corporations? We spent a ton of time both on ATP Insights, but also on AGTP Insights, our show focused on the United States, saying that like a lot of the stuff that's happening in the agentic AI space are experiments. And I think a lot of people are very excited about the potential, the platform potential for these robots. And I think a lot of that is manifesting itself in experimental uses of them. Again, getting back to the Haneda Airport example, just to see like where they fit in, why the humanoids make a better robot than something that doesn't look like a human but can still perform the same functionality. I have my own view on that, which I'll give you in a second, actually. Now, Unitree's prospectus, showed that a substantial portion of its industry application businesses still came, again, according to their prospectus, from relatively controlled deployments rather than widespread autonomous factory work. And that fits right into my contention here that these are experiments. Now, why do humanoid robots matter? And I changed my mind on this, right? Because if you listen to me talk like 6 or 7 months ago, and I want to be fair about this too. I won't say I changed my mind a lot, but I will say this. I am super open-minded, and I will tell you why. Because I don't have access to every small piece of information. But when I get information that's new, I will change my mind. And I think it's really, really important for people to understand this. If you have a view on something, particularly on technology, and you get new information and you don't change your mind, now you're talking about dogma. And I do not believe in dogmatic expressions of beliefs. That's just me. But particularly when it comes to technology. And the more new information I get, the more I'm happy to change my mind. And you can come after me and say like, well, you said 6 months ago that humanoid robots don't matter. Like, yeah, that's what I thought. But the more I sat down and thought about it, the more I thought, here's the thing. If humanoid robots are going to be put into a situation where they have to work together, and I'm putting that kind of in air quotes, but if they have to work together with humans, well, then humans better be able to get along with them and better be able to feel comfortable with them. I mean, just imagine a situation where, because some of these robots are given names, right? My favorite name as an example, Martin, no laughing. I know you're listening. Don't laugh about this. But if you name your robot Bob, but it doesn't look like a human, and I know people that have done this, right? They have this sort of amorphous, ambiguously shaped robot, and they give it a name. It feels weird to me. It just feels weird. But also your interactions with that robot feel like human to machine. And that feels strange because we don't have a lot of that yet in our lives. But if you make the robot humanoid, so it has arms and legs, and it feels over time as you get used to it. Because here's the thing, I think that while it sometimes takes time, I think humans, particularly when it comes to technology, are really, really good about acclimating and getting used to things, particularly new things that they have not experienced previously. So if you're going to put, and again, as an example, if you're going to put a humanoid robot in a place where it's going to help a Japanese human, sort luggage or deal with luggage on a conveyor belt or coming off the airplane or whatever it is that they're testing, wouldn't it be better if that humanoid robot, when he walked into the room or walked into the meeting room, said, "Ohayou gozaimasu," just like a normal human would? It would make the Japanese staff there. And you can do this, you can transfer this to any country at any time, in any language. It's just going to make the staff feel like less kind of creepy and more like, okay, Bob, or in this case, Tanaka-san, is going to feel like, okay, he's just a regular worker here who's just a little bit more mechanical than I am. And I think over time, it's going to make people feel more comfortable with him. And I believe, and again, you can say that I'm crazy for saying this, but I believe really strongly that at the end of the day, Tanaka-san's going to go home and talk to his wife and his kids and say, you know, we brought in this new robot, Bob, today. And at some point, they're going to stop talking about the robotic part of it and just the Bob part of it. I really believe this, right? And because when that robot first starts, it's not going to know everything about that particular business. But once the robot itself gets acclimated, then it's going to feel like more normal. And that's going to be great. And that guy's going to go home and tell his family just about Bob, not about a robot. And I think that's a really important distinction here. And the reason why is because as the robots become more and more part of our daily lives and part of our daily work lives, particularly in places where there's manual labor, that's going to be really important. And again, don't be fooled by a lot of the sort of AI manufactured videos that you see about robots knocking down houses and doing all this other stuff. We've all seen the same videos. Show me where the battery is. I commented about this on X actually a couple of weeks ago. Show me where the battery is. Show me why it's able to do this for like 16 hours. That it's like, the videos just didn't make any sense. We'll get there. But again, we need way more work on lightweight, portable, quick charging batteries, because there's no way you're going to have a battery pack plugged into the wall while robots are doing work. It's just really inefficient. Just think about it this way. That would be like you constantly having a hamburger in your right hand and French fries in your left hand when you're trying to do your job. It's just not possible. Okay. Let's do a little more work on Unitree in particular. What does the demand for this stock, because I said it was 8,000 times oversubscribed by retail investors. What does this tell us about how investors are beginning to value embodied artificial intelligence? Again, I told you that I would give you my opinion, and I will do that in a moment as well if we have time. Actually, I'll give you that first. I think that robots, so I have two big things to say about this. One is an autonomous automobile, notice I did not say car, an autonomous vehicle, just a kind of robot? I mean, it's a robot on wheels, right? It has an engine, it has a battery, it has software in it. It does things for you can't do yourself. It does things that humans can't do. It goes really fast. There's no way a human can go 140 kilometers per hour. It's just not possible. 100 miles an hour, it's just not possible, right? Sorry, those two things are not equivalent. It would be 160 kilometers per hour or 100 miles per hour. But the reason why this matters is that nearly all of that demand arrived before investors had any public trading history on which to judge the shares. So think about that. Retail investors didn't care. They just wanted to be part of this platform bid, right? Because if you believe, like I do, that autonomous vehicles or just vehicles, electric vehicles, or even HEVs, so hybrid electric vehicles, are going to be a platform for everything, not just for artificial intelligence, but for commerce, for trading, for meetings, for everything, for the internet, then you have to believe the same thing. And also for, what's the word I'm looking for? For connectivity between these autonomous vehicles or even semi-autonomous vehicles, you're going to have to believe the same thing about a robot. Because in my mind, these humanoid robots are no different than autonomous vehicles, right? Because that robot's going to be relatively autonomous. And in some cases, because the robots themselves are not driving on streets, they're not avoiding babies, they don't have red lights and green lights, they're probably going to be way more autonomous than your car. And if you can adapt all of the technology that you put inside an autonomous vehicle and miniaturize it, because it's going to have to be smaller and lighter, right? Because a car itself is actually quite heavy. But if you can get that technology to work on a robot, well, then you win. You definitely win. But again, if that robot either has on-device artificial intelligence or slightly latent, but connectivity to AI in the cloud, now you just have to stop and think about what are the implications of this platform. And I think that this was one of the things that that investors were thinking about. So the IPO price, as I mentioned before, at US dollars, $22.37, valued Unitree at almost $9 billion, right? And that's on revenue of $252 million. But that's not actually too high. 4 times 9 made 36 times revs. Okay, fair enough. It's a little bit high, but it's not 100 times revenues. Okay. And yeah, that's fine. Now, we also said the same thing, and let's just double check this while we're at it, right? Let's just double check this. SPCX. What happened to this stock? Okay, so it went down a little bit. It's above the IPO price. SpaceX, right? It's closed at 140 on Friday. It's above the IPO price, but below its highs on Friday itself, but also on the previous day as well. And I think this is partially due to scarcity, but also maybe just some latent demand after a lot of people have sold it. The scarcity for Unitree actually also matters as well. They only sold 10% of the company, so fair enough, meaning comparatively little stock. Again, just based on how much stock is outstanding or has been issued relative to demand, the supply demand there is actually skewed. Reuters reported that substantial premiums are being indicated in private market transactions before the public debut. So we're going to have to see like where that stock opens, but also where it trades over time. Remember, when SpaceX went public on our AGTP Inside show, we said very specifically that it was going to dribble down. It did, and now it's coming back up. Okay, let us get to our second sponsor before we get to our guests. Let's talk a little bit about Boomi. We love Boomi as well. Before we get to today's guest, as I said, let's get a quick message from our second sponsor, Boomi. Boomi is the data activation company for AI and a great partner of ATP Insights. Boomi powers the agentic enterprise by bringing data to life across your business. Trusted by over 30,000 customers and supported by a network of over 800 partners, Boomi helps organizations of all sizes achieve agility, efficiency, and innovation at scale. Okay, Martin, let's welcome our first guest, David Roy Hardoon, the MD and head of advanced AI at Accenture. David, how are you? I am awesome. It's great to have you here.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for the invitation.
It's my complete pleasure. Okay, look, we wanted to have you on because we wanted to talk about autonomous and sovereign AI and how it's going to reshape financial institutions and enterprise operations. Normally, in this case, I would say, hey, tell us a little bit about Accenture. But if you're watching this show, you're laughing, and I like that. So I'm not going to make you do that.
Thank you.
It would feel weird to you and to me. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're at a dinner party and you're like, oh, hi, my name's David. I work at Accenture. People are just like, fine, I get it. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't have to go through the explanation. Let's work with that. Yeah. Okay. Let's just do a little bit of a thing here. How are financial institutions rethinking their own operations through autonomous systems?
Well, we need to unpack that slightly because there's a view that, oh my God, like suddenly, or financial institutions have just woke up one day and thought, let us think about our operations. Let's give credit where credit is due. They have been thinking about it for quite some time with kind of every introduction of new technologies, new capabilities. But what has now introduced that we've kind of shifted from quote unquote pure automation. And okay, you're still gonna give me grief for this one.
Am I?
Okay, that's consultancy speak, but intelligent automation. Now let me explain what I mean by that. When it comes to the automation point of view, if you think about cash management, if you think about bank transfers, when you think about all that wonderful stuff that happens in the back end that basically facilitates things, is a lot of stuff which just has to go from one hand to the other.
Yeah.
But let me give you like the most benign potential example I can think of.
Go ahead.
You just bought something from Hamleys. And you've transferred the money, but guess what? You forgot to put United Kingdom in the address. Now, what does that then mean? It means that, you potentially will either have someone, little, friendly elf in the background who will pick that up because it gets flagged and goes like, he forgot in United Kingdom, manually added in, and it goes through. But that now takes an element of time and effort and cost and slows things down. Or worst case scenario, it bounces back to you and says, look, I'm really sorry, man. We couldn't go with the payment, just redo the whole thing. And you're like, well, I just put United Kingdom. It's Hamleys. I've given you all the address. I've just won this one bit. Right. So the intelligent automation, that rethinking of operations is like, hey, we can infer with 99.99999% accuracy that it's UK. We can autocorrect it, reconcile, move on. It's things like that.
Can I jump in for a second, though?
Please.
Only because I've had it, and I don't want to rehash this because it could take, well, maybe I will rehash it. Here's the thing. I always want to, when we talk about automating things in an intelligent way, and sorry, I'm thinking, that's why I'm closing my eyes. I try to imagine like what a human would do, because I do think, and I'm going to continue to say this until everything is automated in a way that's 100% perfect. I think the human brain is insane, right? It's insanely powerful. And if a human brain saw that and was tasked with, oh, this is just the UK. That guy just forgot to write that in. I'm just going to write it down. And I'm going to believe with 100% surety, or maybe 99.9% surety, that's going to get to the place that he wants it. That payment's approved. It's going through. Argue with me. You know what I mean? Send an email to me later.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So this is what I mean. Then that's intelligent automation from a human perspective. And I've seen this actually. Okay, I took a trip to Jackson Hole, which is in Wyoming. But all my luggage got sent to Jackson, Mississippi, which is not where my vacation was. And that luggage, you could see from the tags, literally went back and forth between Jackson Hole and Jackson, Mississippi like 6 times. Because a human was trying to decide. They were doing the right thing, they thought. But I think in most cases, it's not that hard. So yeah, this intelligent automation, I don't believe, sorry, I'm gonna push back on you a little bit, is consultant speak. I think it's a thing that people want.
Thank you. You just made me very happy saying that, because in the end of the day, a lot of times, look, and I've been in the world of AI. Sometimes I actually get pretty embarrassed when people say to me, David, what do you do? And I have to go, AI.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, well, everyone says they're AI now. It's like, actually, I kind of been doing it for 3 decades, but okay, fair enough. But That's the goal. It's about simplifying things. It's going back to those basic components and what it's trying to achieve. It's the same thing. Let me give you another example of
Please.
intelligent automation. And let's be completely hypothetical, because obviously this would never have happened. When you have a bank account, when you're already a customer of the bank, and now you go saying, look, I want to get a credit card. And they will go like, welcome, Mr. Customer. Can you please provide your KYC, your know your customer, your documentations and your identity? And you're like, but wait, I am your customer. I've given you everything that I have in opening the account. Why are you asking me for the same information that you already have? Oh, do you mean you've lost it? Or do you mean that it needs to be up? You see my point.
Yeah.
It's how do we go and say, well, actually, you know what? Look, we need an additional on top of what we already have, because it's from a risk mitigation, from a verification, whatnot. It's how do we take these operational steps that have to happen. They have to. I mean, at the end of the day, no one wants the luggage to go to the wrong place. No one wants their money to go to the wrong place.
Yep.
Things need to be fluid, but in a manner that goes seamlessly from step to step while understanding the context. And when they don't understand the context, that's when they go, look, sorry, we're really sorry in this scenario, but we need your clarification.
I want to give you another story if you don't mind.
Oh, please.
Just work with me here, because I strongly believe in what you're saying, particularly on the intelligent automation side. I stayed in a hotel years ago that had a butler on every floor, and that's not me flexing. That's just a fact.
Well, a tiny.
Don't laugh at me. It was not that expensive. I'm not going to mention the hotel because then you'll get really mad at me. But anyway, every time you called the butler to my room, like he knew my name, he knew my kids' name. Do you know what I mean? It freaked me out. And then one day, like the butler's station was not occupied. So when I called, so I walked down to the butler station because it was on my floor, and I opened up the little curtain, and it was kind of like the Wizard of Oz in reverse. Because now I got to see like how they did it, and it blew my mind. When you check into the hotel, they ask you for a photo of your passport. And I didn't know what they were doing with it, but they literally pasted it on the wall for every room. So that every time they got a call from your room, they would be like, okay, Michael Waitze, Kyla's my daughter's name. And they would come down to the room and say, your daughter Kyla requested something. I'm like, that blows my mind, but now I know why. And that was intelligent automation. They did the best they could. But why wouldn't you apply technology that now to make that butler's job easier, and then do that at scale inside big institutions like financial institutions? That's what you're talking about. Yeah.
You know something, and I'm going to build on your story, because I used to, maybe people just gave up and stopped asking me this question because I gave boring answers. But I used to get asked the question of, David, what do you think the world of finance is going to transform with AI?
Go ahead.
And you know something, I really found that a hard question to answer, because I kept thinking about because look, let's be honest, the world of finance is money in, money out. Once you take away all the flair, it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
But what you just described, that to me is the potential world of finance. It's the butler. Because imagine, who wakes up in the morning and goes, I want to go to the bank. I want to apply for the mortgage. No, Nobody. It's I want to go to university. I want to build my dream house for my potential part. It's a life goal and aspiration. Now, imagine if suddenly the bank had the ability of saying, well, look, we can now start tailoring. We can start adjusting and customizing, personalizing the world of finance to you in the aspiration and the ambition that you're trying to achieve. Beyond of, this is just the product, this is the interest rate. It's like, okay, that to me is that future. And that's what reimagining the whole transformation of intelligent operation looks like. And by the way, one last point I want to emphasize, because it goes back to kind of works in contradiction to some degree of the analogy you gave about your luggage, is it also shows us that this is a integrated world whereby it's people and machines. It's where the humans, like you said, we have an unbelievable creative mind. Yeah. We can connect dots that sometimes don't really exist, but it's powerful. And then there's a whole bunch of automation. And let's excuse my French, but this crap we don't want to do. We don't do it very well.
Yeah. So, sorry, I don't know why you're doing this to me today, but you keep reminding me of really funny stories. When I first joined Morgan Stanley, I think it was in 1932. That's what it feels like to me. Okay, it wasn't that long ago. One of the guys that joined with me after the first week or two went home to his dad, and he was like, Dad, I'm doing all this crap work. I don't understand. Like, I'm a college graduate. I was hired into the training program. Why don't they hire someone to do this crap work so I can do better stuff? And his dad was like, they did hire somebody. You. But that's all changed today. And again, I think you know my background. So I worked at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs in Tokyo for 20 something years, right? We did a lot of automation, and I talk about it a lot, but it fundamentally changed the way we were able to serve our customers. And I won't say we invented, but we definitely perfected the implementation of algorithmic trading,
yes,
kind of across the equity business. I wouldn't call it 100% autonomous, right? Because part of my job was making sure that those algos did what we expected and that it was explainable and transparent to our clients. But there are things where autonomy, I think, can actually happen, at least at some level. What level do you think of evidence? Do you know what I mean? Of stuff should be available, financial institutions, for them to go, okay, let's let AI automate this and let them do this stuff. What has to happen for that to happen so that we can feel comfortable? Because I remember all the testing that we did.
Yeah.
That was 20 something years ago. What is today like?
Well, ironically, not that different. Because if you think about it, it's a lot about trust. It's about, first and foremost, defining what those tests are. You find that many times that trust doesn't exist, is because, we got this AI, this cool capability, and we have an objective. And the gap in between is, but what is that test that will give us the confidence that this will work reasonably well the majority of the time? Or to the point, actually, that you also I think you're alluding to, is actually when we shouldn't be automating it. Like, for example, in the world of wealth and private banking, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not throwing mud at it. I hear some wonderful things have been built in terms of, digital avatars, in terms of engagement, but I'm like, it's a wealth customer. Actually, what you want is to make it even more personal. You want to have the butler experience of, I know when birthdays are happening, but guess what? It's for that person who knows and is essentially getting agents for them. So like, hey, actually, there's supposed to be a birthday party happening, or actually there's some ethics that may be really relevant in products, is how to kind of sift through this massive universe of financial products and make it relevant. So back to your question, is about creating and defining those sets of tests, of creating comfort. And then the second one is, there's also been a bit of a jump. There's been a jump of like, oh AI, amazing, give me a button, press it, everything works. It's like, whoa.
Slow down.
Yeah, let's not dial that back a bit. I mean, number one is, do you do everything right? I mean, I love it when people say to me, David, but what about hallucination? And I kind of cheekily reply by saying, sometimes I hire people because of their ability to hallucinate. It's called imagination.
Yeah.
But that means if there are certain things that we know it's not going to do well, or we need, excuse my geek talk, it's deterministic outcomes, meaning it has to be the exact same thing for every input.
Every time.
It has to be the same output.
As opposed to probabilistic, but it's not.
There you go. So it's about contextualization. The moment you do that, you suddenly realize, actually, hey, this is not as complicated as we thought. Actually, we're pretty confident in this area, that we're pretty comfortable. But in I don't know, AML, let's say, just hypothetically throwing that out the window, we're not yet comfortable with it because we just want to make sure there's 4-8 eyes on it. So that is what needed. And again, if I go back to what's been done in Morgan Stanley and with other organizations, that's the same thing. It's about building. Heck, think about medicine. I mean, you walk now down to a doctor and they give you some pills, and if you ask them, well, give me the evidence and the transparency and all the things that's going to work, says, well, look, it works this percentage of the time. You may have side effects. These are the side effects. We know that is the degree of confidence that we need to build, that it's been put in place. We've been using it, and we know where it works. We know in what scenarios it works, and we know where it doesn't, or where the potential risks are higher.
David, in your experience, right, when you're talking to large financial institutions, or frankly, just like large institutions in general, I mean, it must be getting better over time, right? I mean, we're already in August, and frankly, we're halfway through August of 2026. But I'm saying that only because if we'd had this conversation in February or March this year, I think your answer might be different, just because of the pace at which things are changing and the pace at which things are being deployed, or at least tested, right? Do you feel like people are starting to get a better understanding of this, right? You said this earlier, but let's dig a little bit deeper here.
Good question.
No, but you know what I mean? Because you're right. Like this idea of, well, we can't trust the model because the model hallucinates. You're like, yeah, but that guy who even just graduated from Harvard, like that dude, you're right. I'm not sure I'm 100% on board that hallucination is imagination, but okay. No, but I'll go with you in a second. I'll go with you with this. No problem. I understand your point. Your point is that, like, I'm not perfect. Why would I expect like, I am probabilistic as well. And if you ask me, and the reason why I say this is because, like, a lot of the guys and gals that I worked with, they had kids, they had soccer games, You know, they had parent-teacher associate PTA meetings they had to go to. And like if you ask them just before the PTA meeting about something, they may rush through the answer. Whereas if you ask them on Monday after a long weekend where they've had like a great little time off and, you know, had a massage on Sunday afternoon, when they come into the office on Monday, they may be really thoughtful about, like, that's just normal human behavior.
Yeah.
That's not 100% deterministic either. But do you think that now people finally understand, not finally, but like have a better understanding of this that they might not have had before?
No. So absolutely, I think the answer is yes. But let me give a bit of color to that in terms of how it's manifesting itself. I think the mode in which we've all been operating, quite candidly, and I think it's also very kind of traditional, especially in the financial sector, is we need to know everything up front, because we need to know up front whether this is safe or not safe. And that's how we operated.
Yeah.
And what we've now kind of been shifting towards, and you may have heard the term, and I've been definitely hearing a lot, I've been talking about it, called runtime governance. But what now we're realizing is that we can't answer everything up front. Not just because in certain scenarios it's infeasible, it's because the context change. Like you just said right now, you know, if you ask me the question on Friday versus asking me the question on Monday, the context is I had that wonderful massage in between, and I'm a lot more relaxed.
Yep.
So it'd be the case the customer behaviors. So when I'm saying runtime governance is saying, well, you know what? I need to know enough upfront that I can let this run, but I now need to continuously. And when I say continuously, I don't mean have committees and ask questions. I mean, literally, just like I build a model, like just like I productionalize something, I productionalize the governance checks. Is this still right? Is this still safe? Look, I'm sure you've driven those cars, I mean, especially if it's Tesla and whatnot, where suddenly, I remember the first time it happened to me, by the way, the wheels just started shaking.
Oh my God.
Exactly. And what it's doing is saying, dude, I think you're falling asleep. Oh, I think you're getting tired. Can you please take a break? What did you just do? That was just runtime governance. When it said, I didn't just step in, I did put the seatbelt, done it, all good, hunky dory, life moves on. I'm testing you as you're going along. And what I'm finding is you really need that break. That's what we're finding and what we're realizing, and the kind of questions we're starting to formulate of how do I test that?
So here's how do you test it? It's a really good question. How do you test people's reaction to the technology? And I want to give you another example to put it into context because we're just having too much fun. But here's the thing. I was in a car for the first time a couple of weeks ago. I don't know how to say this the right way. That has parking assist. And it freaked me out. Because I've been parking since I was 16 years old, and let's say I'm multiples of 16 now, without giving away the game. But the point is that, like, it parked perfectly.
Yeah.
And that is very deterministic. And there is some artificial intelligence and definitely some machine learning and some visual aids there, cameras on the car as well. But I had to get used to it. And I think there's something to be said for that for AI at work. And I'm curious if you're seeing that as well. Do you know what I mean? That first sort of installation of just like, whoa, I can't believe that. And then it's just like, yeah,
100%. 100%. And by the way, just to relate those stories, when I was in the first time in the car where it was self-driving, I freaked out.
Completely.
I mean, the fact that the car knew the speed, and I'm just like, no, this is going to go wrong. This is going to go wrong. Because, I've driven cars that were made in 1957, like the most mechanical that they can be.
Right.
But to your question, that's exactly when you look at the quote unquote newer generation, which are were born with this.
Yeah.
It's not the same hesitation. And I don't blame people which kind of go and they're like, wait, are you sure? Because we've always done it this way. This is why it's extremely important to work with people, just like I'm presuming when you did the self-parking, you've done it a couple of times. You kind of realize, hey, this is actually doing the right thing, to the point where now I'm equally comfortable sitting in a self-driving vehicle and not absolutely freak out completely.
Yeah.
That is something that's extremely important and it cannot be ignored. Let's just be very candid. Organizations at time, I don't think they do this intentionally, but do kind of ignore it. They're like, no, you shouldn't be worried about this, or you shouldn't be scared, or it's irrational. It's a new capability. We should use it. Whereas in my personal view, the more appropriate approach is saying, look, let's acknowledge that it's a bit scary. Let's acknowledge that, hey, we're not used to it. And let's find those steps to help you realize that this capability actually brings us to that next level. But guess what? there are certain situations whereby you still want to drive your car, you still want to park it yourself, you still have those novelties, but it's in the right context.
Yeah, exactly. Can I ask you one more thing? We're going to go a little bit over time, but do you mind? I did a whole segment at the beginning of the show before we welcomed you about Unitree, the Chinese humanoid robot company. And my belief that humanoid robots like autonomous vehicles are going to be another sort of very important platform for artificial intelligence, but also a computing platform. Just give me like 2 minutes on what you think about that, because you're closer to it than I am. I've been following this stuff for a long time, but the idea that like humanoid robots can have artificial intelligence attached to them and a whole bunch of other things, and because they're mobile as well, that's going to be another platform for technology that I don't think 100% of the universe has actually realized.
So let me try this really quickly.
Go ahead.
And I will say that there isn't a cultural overlay, which I think is extremely important, and we definitely don't have the time to go into it.
Yep.
But let me just tell you a quick story that will kind of answer that. So I'm here in Singapore, and I was in Changi Airport. And you know, when people drive those vehicles, they'll be, excuse me, move away. I literally was walking and I said, like, oh, excuse me, do you mind moving out of the way? And I turn around and there's an empty wheelchair driving itself. And and basically what it is as you know, manpower crunch, ability. So literally what they have is it is a robot. It just doesn't look at the robot the way we think about it.
Got it.
Which will take you to the lounge, to, you know, your gate on its own, and then will take itself back to the next person. So to answer your question, absolutely, we're going to see it. But again, the same thing with the self-driving vehicle. We need to prepare the people for it. Some cultures will be a lot more, it'll be easier, some less, but it doesn't negate the fact that we have to prepare, but it's already here. I mean, if you ever fly into Changi and you see a wheelchair just doing its own thing, or people are sitting in it and having a conversation with one another and it's just going, it's fascinating. Yeah,
but that's also the perfect use case for it. Again, one more thing and then I will let you go. You don't need to respond to this, but just to give the audience context who've listened to the first part of this episode, you know, part of the reason why they're using or testing humanoid robots from Unitree at Haneda Airport is because of the thing you just mentioned, which is there's just you know, Japan is aging. They're not creating more humans because they're not having babies. They're not getting married as much. And there's just like a lack of labor, right? So you're right. Culturally, it's important for them to be able to deploy robots because nobody else is there to do the job. It's not like they're even taking jobs away from people. Anyway, thank you. You were awesome today. You have to come back. You were awesome. It was great to have you. And stay in touch. It was great to meet you too, David.
Have a great day.
Thanks, man. Okay, Martin, let's do a little bit of HCL for today. HCL is supercharging progress with AI that moves beyond ambition and delivers real business impact. A recognized leader in the artificial intelligence space, trusted by global enterprises to turn technology into transformation. HCL Tech, they are supercharging progress. Martin, let's bring in Marijke Timmers. How are you? Did you hear me pronounce your name? Marijke. And the reason why is because you're so nice. Because to pronounce my name is simple, Michael. Like, it's so boring. It's so generic. Like, nobody needs to know. But I bet your whole life, people are just like, I don't know what to call you.
Absolutely. I've had it all.
You must have had it all. Well, it's great to have you on the show. And I really appreciate the sort of pre-show help. I wrote it down. I tried to memorize it. Hopefully I did it right. Anyway.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for coming. We wanted to talk to you about how agentic AI can turn marketing strategy into scalable execution for small businesses. But first, tell us a little bit about the Marketing Collective before we get to this in detail.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. So the Marketing Collective is exactly that, a collective of marketing specialists, each business owners ourselves, and we work with founders who are brilliant at what they do, but who struggle with marketing. And often that struggle is because, you know, they've jumped in. Small businesses by nature are very practical. We're doers. But what that means is that there's not always a lot of substance behind their marketing. And so often we get going on activities downstream, the website, the social media, the advertising, but it doesn't really work unless the thinking upstream has been done. That strategy piece is the piece that a lot of small businesses miss. And that's really where we focus our coaching and the Marketing Collective on helping small businesses build strategies first so they know what good looks like for them before all the execution and the AI and everything that comes after that can really start to deliver real return on investment.
Do you get the sense that founders, because you've mentioned that first, but even just small businesses, and to be fair, if you're a founder of a business at the beginning, it's by definition small. No one founds like a large financial institution.
Correct.
Today.
Correct.
It may turn into one.
Mhm.
I don't want to say they take marketing for granted, but do you think they feel like it's an add-on, at least at the beginning, where like, if I just have because all the books you read about startup companies is like, just find the right product market fit.
Yeah.
And then everything like, the hand of God is going to guide you in the right direction. Do you feel like people take marketing for granted and they try it themselves? And once they figure out, I don't know what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. So everyone's a marketer, right? Because we're all consumers. And so we think, it can't be that hard. And that's exactly what happens is we jump in, we do all of the doing piece.
Right.
But if you've never been a marketer, you don't necessarily know what's involved in the thinking piece.
Yeah.
And it's really like anything, it's that strategic piece that really makes the doing work. And so for a lot of founders, and startups, you don't always have a lot of time or money to really do that strategic piece either. And so it's natural to jump in and to start learning as you go. But what I find is that a lot of founders, a lot of small businesses, get a couple of years in and then they realize, actually, we've got to go back to those foundations.
So what did you, and I use you as kind of a proxy for the Marketing Collective, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But maybe I should just say this different. What did you all either learn or have to learn or push yourselves to learn about where artificial intelligence, whether it's generative AI, agentic AI, any of the sort of new flavors of artificial intelligence that we've had since like the beginning of this year, because that's really what it is, right? That even if you've been in the marketing business for 15 years, I get the fact that the strategic part is really important. That I think is table stakes. Like if you don't have a strategy, remember who was it? I think it was Mike Tyson who said like everybody has a strategy until they get punched in the face. It's different in for startups, but like what did you all have to learn to think like, okay, now we have this new tool, but how can we make it most effective and most efficient for the people that we're trying to serve and still have the right strategy in place?
Yeah, so I think, and we've got to look at when it became good for marketing
for
too.
Sure.
And we're talking very recently, in my opinion, right? So I was not advocating for our clients to use AI.
Got it. Go ahead.
Up until probably not even 6 months ago, to be perfectly honest with you, because I didn't think it was there, and it certainly won't work unless you have the strategy. That's the context piece, right? With a tool is only as good as the thinking underneath it. The small businesses that are going to win with AI are the ones with the clearest thinking. They've got to know who they are, who they serve, what makes them different, how their customers actually make decisions. The tool is the overlay once you've got all of that stuff in place.
But what did you guys have to learn to figure out like where you put it into the value chain of just your own marketing stuff, but also the marketing things that you teach and deploy with some of your clients? Because it's there now, right?
It is, yeah. And so what we have always focused on in the Marketing Collective is the brand foundations, the strategic piece up front. I would never advocate to use AI. I'm a purist, right? I'm a brand strategist. So I would never advocate to use AI in your brand strategy. But you can use it in your marketing strategy. And so we've started playing around with AI in terms of, the research and analysis piece initially. That was the first use case, I guess, where we could really see, okay, let's do some market sizing. let's take a look at if we pull in the market, the customer data that we have in our business and summarize and analyze and actually generate some real customer insights from that. Huge amounts of data that small businesses get, even from reviews.
Yeah.
Tell me what those themes are that our customers are telling us. Voice of customer research, all of that stuff. That was really our first use case, starting there. And then with Agentic has changed the game in terms of delivery. You know, you can now build an entire multi-channel integrated campaign in an hour.
You mean delivery of results back to your own clients, in the sense that they'll ask you to take care of something. They'll be like, normally that would take how long? And then how long does it take now? You said an hour. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the change in efficiency and effectiveness?
The major change is that analytical piece to begin with, you know, the building of those dashboards. My entire career, I have wanted it all in one place. And suddenly with AI, you know, you can see it all in a dashboard. And my background, you know, nearly 2 decades in corporates, and corporates couldn't do that either because the data was all over the place. Suddenly with AI, you can pull all different, you know, data sources in to get that single view that we've been talking about for years, but never really been able to do very well. And now this is on the desktops of small businesses, not just major enterprises. And I think that's a game changer for us as marketers, but it's a game changer for a founder who can suddenly see which levers they pull in their marketing and what it does in real time.
How does it change their marketing when they have? So there are 2 things here, really. And I love asking both parts of this question. Is that in the old days, 6 months ago, the way that companies did like data aggregation and data accumulation seemed really slipshod to me. And as you said, like very fragmented in the sense of like, all this data is coming in, we'll get to that later, like we'll organize that later. But now you can't get to it later, because if your data is not organized in a way that makes sense, even though I know the AI can go out and get it from like multiple sources and the fragmentation is not that important, at least not as important as it used to be, but still having it organized makes sense. How do you convince the founders to do that? And then what changes for them from a marketing perspective when they can see like, oh, now that I have access to all this data, it changes the way I thought about what?
Well, yeah, because previously you'd look at your channels in silos, right? So you might have data on search, what's happening on your website, email, social, and you'd be looking at a lot of that in isolation. Suddenly, when you pull it all together and you get that one picture, you can see the trends. You can see if you move, you know, this piece over here, what it does to your website visits, what it does to your engagement in social media. And that, for a, you know, data geek and marketing person, is really exciting. But for a founder, they've never had that view before. They've never been able to see, and that's the problem for return on investment too, and for really putting money into your marketing. Is it's a scary thing to do as a startup and as a small business with small budgets if you can't see what's happening in real time, if you can't see what's working, but also if it's not. I mean, it's just as valuable if you see that it didn't work, because you're not going to do that again, right?
How fast can people pivot their marketing strategy if they do see, as you just suggested, that it's not working, but it obviously it needs to work, otherwise the business isn't going to grow in the way that the founders expect it to? How fast can they sort of iterate and change stuff, and how does AI help them do that?
Well, I think the first thing with that is in the dashboards that we serve to our customers,
right?
It actually has recommendations too. So it's showing what's working, what's not working, and potentially where those gaps are and what to focus on in the next month. And so those are the levers that people can, you know, start to pull and push. And when they do that, then they can see, you know, if it's not working or if it is working, it'll give them a different recommendation. And part of the agentic AI that I think is a real game changer is it can then help suggest what to change and go ahead and perform that action if we let it, right? So we don't always necessarily want to give it the complete runway. But that dashboard operates like your CMO. It's somebody suggesting, look, this is aligned with your strategy, because we feed the strategy, obviously. This is aligned with your strategy. Let's focus on this for the next 30 days. It measures what happened in those 30 days and it suggests another one. So that strategy piece is actually, it's a living, breathing strategy. It's not a 60-page document that someone produced and we never looked at again. It's a living, breathing thing. It moves with you.
Do you think it makes, and I think you make a really good point here, actually, do you think it makes the marketing function more of a real-time thing and less of a, we've made this decision on this as our marketing strategy and now we're just going to go employ that strategy? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is where the difference between a brand strategy and a marketing strategy is really important.
I'm so glad you went there, because that's where I was going next. Go ahead. I love it. I love it. Go ahead.
Because your brand strategy should not change.
Not really.
Right. That's the core of you. And this is where I say to people, please don't use AI to build your brand strategy. Can
you differentiate for people just so they get a sense? Because I have a follow-up, but I want people to understand first, what's the difference between your brand strategy, which feels much grander to me, and your marketing strategy for that brand? Yeah.
Yeah. So your brand strategy is, to me, that's the human piece. That's your values, your purpose. That's your existential stuff that connects you as a human to your ideal customers, right? Especially in the small business space, because often what we do there is so deeply personal. That's the piece that doesn't really change. That's fundamentally who you are and who you're here to serve. Right. Your marketing strategy is how you go about reaching and resonating with those people. And that's where AI is super helpful. Market sizing, competitive analysis, even positioning, if you feed it the right things, it can help you with. And then obviously there's the delivery piece on the back of that.
I want to get my head straight here. Where, if the brand part is more human, like, why do we think that from a brand strategy perspective, we shouldn't deploy some of the tools that we're using from a marketing perspective to help us build what that brand strategy is, particularly at the earliest times of building that company where we're not 100% sure what our brand strategy is? Like, we kind of know, but can we use AI to help us sort of nail it down in a way that's easily communicated to people and then helps transfer that into our marketing strategy?
It can help you summarize your thoughts and your ideas, but I believe that still needs to come from you, right? It's like asking your AI to tell you your hopes and dreams.
I did that yesterday. What are you... I'm kidding.
It can do it. It can do it. It will give you an answer. But is it truly you? And that's where I think, I actually think brand and marketing agencies will always play a role in that brand strategy piece in developing the depth underneath a truly human brand experience.
Got it.
That's the heart. That's the heart. AI helps with the head and the hands, but it can't do the heart.
Okay. Before I let you go, how open is what I wrote down, sorry, are small businesses to adapting to this new sort of data-rich marketing world, right? Because now they have way more information than, like, a startup today or a founder today has way more information, way more access to that information through the sort of analytical AI that you were talking about earlier. How open are they to this new data-rich marketing world?
Oh, look, I think there's two types of people.
Okay, it's good enough for me. No, go ahead.
Absolutely, there are the creative ones that actually, AI is not going to be at the forefront for them because they're more heart-centered, purpose-led entrepreneurs. And then there's the more data-led, show me the return on investment. And I think that's where AI is really powerful. But also in the delivery piece. I mean, all of my customers are embracing it. I honestly didn't think all of them would, because there's a lot of values-based environmentalists in my client base too, and that's a challenge for a lot of people. But there's no denying that agentic AI, moves you from rich assistant that drafts your marketing into actually an operator that does it. And for a founder, that's like hiring a junior team, you could never previously afford. So in my experience, most small businesses are really embracing it and wanting to use as much of the tool as they possibly can. Sometimes, and this is where the stakes get a bit interesting, everyone's building their own tools, right? And I think the risk with that is we are handing over a huge amount of control and ownership to a very small number of players. And there's a risk involved in that too. If a better tool comes out, if that tool becomes too expensive for small businesses. What I'm starting to see now is a lot of consultants, agencies, technology companies actually delivering more specialist AI tools that just do one or two things really well. And I think we'll start to see, more of a decentralized model, I hope, where small businesses, any kind of business, are actually investing in those best practice, best in class tools rather than trying to build everything themselves.
Awesome. Okay. Marijke, thank you so much for coming and doing this today. I really appreciate it. You were awesome. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Okay, Martin, let's bring David back. David. David, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly fine.
I love that t-shirt, by the way. I love the camera angle. It's like just perfect.
I thought today's a lot more informal. It's just a 20-minute
I love it.
session.
I love it. I wasn't going to mention the informality, but I do love the t-shirt. It's perfect. Okay. Normally we'd introduce you, but we don't have to do that. Anyway, let's just jump right into this. We wanted to talk about how AI security is changing stuff, right? Particularly when the AI starts not just generating answers, but actually doing things. What has changed now that AI is moving, as I just mentioned, from like generating answers, just like, here's a question I have for you, that's a good answer, or at least a good enough answer, from actually doing stuff? What's changed?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Michael. When, in our previous discussions, we've talked about organizations that are moving from output risk to action risk. So, there's been a focus around the foundation. And that's already a problem when AI is being used for that content generation, the analysis, the summarization. But agentic AI moves those stakes because agents can act exactly as you've said. They can retrieve data, they can call APIs, they can interact with systems, they can update records. And once that happens, that fragmented data and weak governance, it just doesn't create unreliable answers. It can create operational mistakes, compliance exposure, security gaps, and more importantly, or more often, we see poor customer outcomes.
So what should happen? I want to ask this the right way. Again, in the old days, right, if you had an employee that you gave some autonomy to deal with clients, and they were also just as concerned with this move from output risk to action risk, right? Because if you give an employee some amount of autonomy, even if it's small, the actions that they take can have impacts just like the software can have, right? Just like agentic AI can. We kind of know what the reaction should be to that when a human makes a mistake. You stop them. Like I've seen plenty of people, too many people actually do a sell when it should have been a buy. Like, this is bad. You don't fire them on the spot though, you know what I mean? But what should you I mean, maybe you should in some cases, but if they do it on purpose, but you understand the point. Like you stop that trade, you fix that trade first, and then you take them aside at the end of the day and go like, okay, what are we doing? Why did we do that? Let's never ever do that again. Do you know what I mean? Or you put them on probation. But what do you do? What's the reaction to agentic AI that sort of has a similar situation? And what's sort of the analog to that, if that makes sense? Do you know what I mean? Because you have to react to it. if something bad happens.
You do. I agree with you. I think in the past, humans may make one mistake or two mistakes, and they understand their mistake, or somebody's told them to stop.
Yeah.
But the difference now is agents are operating far, far faster than that. They're accessing systems, they're making decisions, and they might change 1,000 records in an organization before anybody picks up on it that it's an error.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. They're not humans, but once they're inside enterprise systems, they're behaving more like digital workers. So they need some level of a privileged service account rather than just traditional software features. So again, for me, it's all about identity and lifecycle control. So they need a clear owner, they need a business purpose, they need a scoped role. And, there's many factors here, but the one I always keep coming back to as well is least privilege access.
Least privilege access is interesting. Maybe first of all, you want to explain to people exactly what that means. I think I got it. But then the follow-on to that is always going to be, what can they do with least, sorry, why is that? It's like a tongue twister, with least privilege access, and who actually controls them? Did you do that to me on purpose? Sorry, go ahead.
No, not at all. Well, it's around what are they actually allowed to access, because they're able to read enterprise data. Are they allowed to write enterprise data back? Can they delete or modify records? So for the scope and the role they've been given, what can they do without adding more risk or damaging the business? That's essentially what least access means.
Yep. But then how do you decide, first of all, who controls them? And the second thing is, again, I'm just trying to make the human analog to this, or the human comparison to this. You have a sense of pride as a human employee when someone says, okay, you can only do these 3 things. And maybe they don't even caveat it for you, but kind of know if you can accomplish that and you don't do anything wrong, you don't make a mistake, then you get more access. So you go from least privileged access to a little bit more privileged access. How do you build the right governance and the right sort of security governance around an agents that are doing that, particularly when even if you can hire 10 people on a Monday, you could hire 1,000 agents on a Monday, if you know what I mean? So there's a lot more agentic stuff potentially going on than there is human stuff going on. So how do you determine when it's time to give them more access, and then who controls that access as well?
It's a multi-layered answer, because you have your traditional governance policies within your organization. So, those are policies that affect not just the human around how they use AI, but equally how AI can be used within the organization as well. But the challenge is, if we sort of go back to the old perimeter-based security.
Yep, I was going to ask about that.
You could protect that enterprise by securing that boundary. So you could look at the devices, the networks, the applications, firewalls. But the challenge now is that enterprise environments are much more distributed. So you've got data sitting around SaaS, cloud, legacy systems, etc. And agentic AI is making that more complex, because they don't operate neatly inside one application. So you're exactly right. Somebody has to make a call around what systems can they access, what APIs can they call, what are they allowed to do, and through which pathway, under which policy. Do you have to consider logging, and who's going to step in and do the human oversight? And more importantly, who's going to stop or reverse the action if they've done it wrong?
Yeah, but who? So that's the question though, right? Is like, inside the enterprise, what job function fills that role? Again, I'm out of the enterprise for a while now.
No, but I know exactly
what I mean?
Where you're going. Yeah,
because
I do.
Can I just be clear for the audience that's watching? When a new employee joined my team, I could give them access to some of the algorithmic trading stuff. This is back when I was on the PT desk, or portfolio trading desk. I give them access to Microsoft Office, all these things, but none of them were so dangerous. Particularly, none of them were as dangerous as the algos. But we would literally start with like the simplest, market on open algorithm, so they understood how the algos worked, and on a small trade. So if something went wrong, it was just like, okay, that cost us $5, but it doesn't matter. It didn't cost us $5 million. But you understand the point though, right? Then we would slowly ease them into having access to all of these other things. But now, as you mentioned, like I, as a manager, could control what level of access they had and who had it, because it was more simplified back then. But I was only managing, let's say, 4 people.
Yeah.
Are these like new roles that have to be created for people to understand how that agentic AI is impacting the enterprise, particularly from a security standpoint, when, as you said, now there are API access, now there's MCP access, now there's SaaS, like all these things are going on that weren't going on even just a few months ago. Do you know what I mean?
No. Yeah, I know what you mean. It really depends on the organization, because for some businesses we talk to, that's an IT discussion. And it's a discussion that IT has been having for years. But obviously, as we've said, agents amplify some of the security issues they have within their business. And other organizations we talk to, that's an AI center of excellence. They've taken over those discussions and trying to work out, how is AI embedded in the business? How does it operate? Who controls it? How do we monitor it? How do we govern it, etc.? Where for others, it's a C-level or a board discussion. You know, that authority has been given to a CDO, or in some businesses, a CAIO, because they've made that function as part of the senior leadership team.
Yep.
So it's quite a mix across those organizations. Whether somebody's found out the right mix at the moment, but that's something we're still looking to see.
Don't you think, and again, I was writing down all these things, so I want to make sure that I got exactly what you said. Some organizations say there should be an IT decision. I completely disagree with this if that's what they're deciding, but that's fine. Some of them think it should be a center of excellence, like an AI center of excellence. I kind of get that. To me, I feel like the C-suite and the board level is just like way too far away. Now, the easy answer to me is like it should just be a combination of all three of those things. But do you feel like, again, just based on your experience, that at some point in time, maybe today, we should have this, and again, this is your opinion, right? But maybe today, like we should have this AI center of excellence that is given by the board. So the board of directors and the C-suites goes, we need to have this AI level center of excellence because otherwise we're just going to get lost in this. But that at some point, that's just going to be part of every person's sort of day-to-day work. And they'll just not know it by osmosis, but it'll just become normal in the same way that, like, I don't try to steal my neighbor's password. Like, I know that's wrong too. Do you know what I mean, though? It just becomes part of the SOP for day-to-day work, and that center of excellence can kind of fade away, or will we always have that because AI is just so powerful and so important?
No, again, I think there's a layered conversation there, in that you're exactly right. The board, the C-suite could be providing a high-level direction to the business, and that may filter down to an AI center of excellence or IT, etc. But the other thing is to look at the tooling itself, because within the tooling itself, we're seeing a shift to essentially validating identity before accessing those backend systems. So we're seeing a lot of Boomi users, as an example, looking at how can they use things like AI gateways, as an example. So when an AI agent wants to access backend systems, you know, we know who the caller is. You know, is it through a human user or is it through another agent? And we understand through potentially an identity provider what permissions they have within the business, what scope of control and access they have, and that's what we pass on to the agent. So I think it's a conversation all the way from the top down to the bottom.
Do people have, I want to ask this the right way, do frontline workers actually have the ability today, or will or should they have the ability today, to create their own agentic partners? Do you know what I mean? Or co-workers? And the reason why I'm asking again is because I had a lot of ideas about how like the algos should work, but there was no way that I had access to sort of the algorithmic trading platform in a way that allowed me to change the way an algo work and then just have like the Michael specific algorithm. This was like not possible. But is that changing today as people get more and more used to having agentic AI around, go, hey, it would help my personal job if I could automate this thing? And does that agent then require a human resources ID, again, for security purposes that maybe wasn't necessary before?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to unpack there. You know, shadow IT has been around for forever. Because business teams always needed to move faster than IT could support them.
For sure.
And you see that exactly with shadow AI. It's the same thing, but with faster and greater consequences. Because if you have that data sprawl underneath, you have that integration sprawl, you have governance blind spots, that's going to create a whole lot of risk. So you're exactly right in that that's happening. And, you know, businesses are looking in and going, okay, we need to understand what agents are actually running in our organization.
Yeah.
You know, who's running, what backend systems are they connected to? You know, is the data current? You know, was that access authorized, etc. So I always go back to what is old is new, given my background in API management. You know, we're going through some of those same motions. Do we put this governance in force at the beginning? And, you know, we register agents, we lock them down, and we understand what they can access? Or is this something we do after the fact? And we're seeing both patterns. We're seeing some organizations that want to run fast. They want to see what AI can do and worry about how to govern and control them later, where we have other organizations we talk to that have locked everything down and are really looking at this as to what can this agent do? Is it really worth the risk? Is it worth the time? Should I put it into production, etc.?
I love this idea of shadow IT. I hadn't thought about that, actually. You're right. No, but you're 100% right, because I remember when, this is so silly to say this out loud, but I remember when like iPads were first introduced, not in institutions, but just like at the Apple store. And I was like, if I could bring this to work and connect it to the, do you know what I mean? Like I could get a lot of stuff done. And I know my clients have it. If I could figure out a way to deliver research to them on the iPad, like I could get a lot of stuff done. And there was a little bit of shadow IT. And to be fair, now that you mention it, I did a lot of shadow IT stuff that actually was really productive, that at some point got rolled out to real IT. But how does it, because it's happening so much faster now, how does it really impact, you know, because I wasn't changing anything, but how does it impact data quality? Because a lot of the stuff that people are doing with agentic AI are automating processes that are happening between external and internal, which means I'm getting more data, but like, where do I send that data? And then how do I protect the security part of all that stuff when it's happening? I don't want to say on an ad hoc basis, but I like your terminology, on a shadow AI basis.
Yeah, well, that's the challenge. If you as a user in your organization are doing this in a shadow AI fashion, you don't know the quality of the data you're accessing, the systems. When was that data last refreshed?
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you're potentially going to go to your manager or the board or the C-suite and discuss something that's completely wrong or completely out of date. And this is where it comes back to having a governed path through your organization to actually use AI, and what systems can it access, how can it access, etc. Because that's ultimately going to be the path that gives you the best outcome for your business. And you know, we talked about this before, that context within your business, that's key. Yeah. You know, that's your competitive differentiation. That's what's going to give you that advantage in your day-to-day role.
Or are companies, it just occurred to me, right? Because I remember, again, being at Goldman, and just every now and then we'd have a town hall about something that was like really important. I wouldn't call it existential, but I feel like in this case, AI is existential. Are we seeing big companies, big institutions sort of learn from you guys what the right way is to behave, and then having town halls around it? Do you know what I mean? So that everybody is kind of required to understand how this is working. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted.
Yeah, I don't know about the town halls. It's an interesting concept. We definitely see, and it comes through hackathons organizations do. We've seen organizations, both enterprises and partners, run hackathons to see not only, you know, what the agent could do and what the use case would be, but how it would operate within the business. You know, what changes would have to happen for the agent to scale and do that responsibly and with little risk. So we've definitely seen in that regards. But again, you know, there's a lot of discussion going back to the foundational layer, you know, understanding, well, what will we have to change? You know, is this a siloed approach? Is this something that can scale? Do we have to look at, you know, moving our APIs to MCP as an example? And then how do we lock down those MCP servers to make it easily discoverable for AI? So there's a lot of things here on the plate that organizations have to think about.
Yeah, I mean, this idea of locking anything down today, you know, I like to use the door and window analogy just because I think it's something that people can understand. But it's like, if you just put 10 new windows in your house every day, it's just harder and harder to lock them down. Even if you put, do they still do this for like security, where they put those little sensors on the window and then a little sensor on the windowsill? And if the window, do you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly. I know where you're coming from, but you can think of it as well that it's uncontrolled sort of sprawl. And it's interesting sort of the conversation we're having with some businesses. if you're, you're spinning up your own tools, your agents, your scripts, etc., that is increasing the security risk, but it's also, increasing cost duplication, integration complexity, etc.
Yeah.
And we saw this in the Omdia data we talked about before, that organizations are actually looking at how do we simplify our technology stack? How do we reduce that fragmentation, that duplication? Because that consolidation of the tech stack is actually going to help with some of these security conversations as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, even back in the day, the firms where I worked, they what's the word I'm looking for? They standardized around, let's just say, Microsoft Office. Now, you could have used Google Sheets, but like that's just another thing that IT had to deal with. And I think that's kind of what you're suggesting. It's just like, okay, that works and that's fine, but we're not dealing with that from a security standpoint, from an ROI standpoint, from a data management. We're just not going to do that. You have to use these tools. And you're right, that sprawl creates problems that I don't think most people on the front line understand, because they're like, hey, it works for me. Why is it a problem? Yeah.
Oh, no, you're exactly right. And that's where, coming back to, what AI can access, that's going to be key. Who's allowed to call them, what data can be returned, etc. Those are the things that business is going to have to work through.
Can I ask you this too? Like, how do we convince people that this is an ROI problem as well and a cost problem? Do you know what I mean? Because they're thinking, this stuff is free or it's easier. I just download it. It's not a big deal. But how do we convince them it's an ROI problem and a cost problem as well, not just a security problem?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously we've had the conversations around token maxing. I think everybody understands that now. Everybody's just playing with ideas. They're not and we've seen enough articles you and I have around.
For sure.
There's no outcome. There's great ideas.
Exactly. There's no outcome. I love the way you say that in passing, like it doesn't matter. There's no outcome. Stop doing that.
Exactly. But that discussion has led down some interesting paths. So, we have the discussion around the unclear ROI, and can you reduce some of that through, collapsing your tech stack, reducing sprawl, etc. There's other conversations around, adjusting loads. So you might have loads that go to a frontier model like a Claude or an OpenAI for heavy duty processing, where on premise you might have a very lightweight model that's surrounded by the context of your business and does the day-to-day processing for your organization. So that reduces costs, as an example. So there's different angles there that are being had, and it's interesting. I think, especially at the C-suite level, they understand it now. The CFOs are getting involved in these conversations. They're looking at how do we reuse assets, how do we measure business value, how do we get more outcomes, and it's a conversation that's coming up more and more day to day.
So one of the conversations that I've had a lot recently, particularly with companies like DeepSeek and Kimi K3 and all these other models becoming open weight, whether everybody uses them or not is a different thing. But are we seeing more risk being taken on by people as they model switch in real time, right? So like I hear a lot of people tell me, oh, I use this model for that thing, but I use this model for agentic coding because it's just better. And then I switch back. Is that also another surface where the controllability around the agentic AI that's being used also needs to be understood from a security standpoint? Does that matter?
Exactly. And I think AI gateways are a great potential solution there. That's a new thing that's coming out on the market at the moment.
Yep.
That's one of the roles of an AI gateway. As part of that identity and access control is understanding where should those loads be moved. Should they be put on an open weight model, or does that cause a security risk? And we know that we have a user that's locked down for OpenAI, and the load should be put in there. So there's definitely something AI gateways are coming to the fore about.
Okay, I know we're a little bit over time, but I want to ask you one more thing. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So what kind of guardrails should these big organizations or even small organizations actually put in place to move from sort of this chaotic deployment of agentic AI to the a controlled environment of agentic AI? And then I'll let you go, I promise.
No problem. I think that list can be quite lengthy. I'll try and summarize it up. But for me, first, it's always discovering what agents you have in your organization, who created what they can do, assigning ownership. So back to one of your earlier questions, that there is accountability when something happens with one of these agents. looking at its scope and purpose, so it has a clearly defined role. Looking at that least privilege access as well is key. And then sort of ending off around on the governance side, monitoring their behavior, keeping humans in the loop for those high impact actions, and essentially building escalation and kill switch mechanisms in there. Because if you sort of have all of those together, you then end up sort of where the nirvana is for many companies is around they can accurately measure business outcomes and that they can show AI delivers value.
Awesome. Okay. Look, I really, really enjoy these conversations with you. Every time we pick a different topic, I learn something new, and that's awesome for me. It's also awesome for the audience. You're really good at this. I want to thank you again for taking so much time with us today, David. I really appreciate it.
No problem. We're always happy to be on the show and always love our conversations and where they end up.
Thank you. I love that t-shirt, by the way. What are we doing?
I'm sure you can get one from Boomi if anyone's interested.
Okay. Thank you, David. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Okay, Martin, let's bring in Haoyang to talk about AgenticHire. How are you doing today? Awesome. I am doing super duper. It's great to have you here. We wanted to talk to you about how AI-powered candidate assessment can change the way hiring happens, the cost, and actually give companies stronger talent. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about AgenticHire before we dig into this in detail.
Thanks for having me. Basically, AgenticHire is the next generation hiring system. It's built for HRs, hiring managers, startups especially, to reduce the time spent hiring, which is an extremely big problem in startups. So right now, the main problem for companies is when you post a job on LinkedIn, tomorrow you get back 2,000 candidates, applicants, people who seem to be good on paper, especially with LinkedIn's easy apply button. So
Yep.
I help to filter for all those candidates and tell you who are the best few to interview, those who are worth your time.
So what are you actually filtering for, and where does AI come into play? Like, again, if you're getting 2,000 applicants, that's a lot of page turning if you have to like read all these CVs or resumes, depending on which part of the world in which you live. Do you know what I mean? So what is AI actually helping you do? What are you filtering by? How do we decide what those filters are? And then at the end of the day, how do we make sure we're getting the best candidates?
Definitely. That's a really good question.
Thank you.
So basically, we use AI to basically filter for screen people at mass, basically. So right now, a lot of different companies look for different aspects, culture fits. Basically, some companies like more autonomous, some companies value more communication. So depending on the stage of startups and depending on what you actually want, we help to filter for the candidates who fit your profile based on how they answer a 20-minute interview. So we filter based on 9 dimensions: resilience, technical fit, culture fit, motivations, and some other criteria. And based on that 20-minute conversation, we'll be able to detect who is worth interviewing for your time for the next stage of interviews. So we do not automate the whole process. We believe that human judgment is still very much needed in hiring, especially in hiring, because 20 minutes is just simply not enough for you to tell how good a candidate is, but we can roughly decrease the amount from 2,000 to 25, something like that, for you to save your time. Firstly, so you don't have to look at CVs, and secondly, so you can decrease the amount of people you actually interview.
So walk me through this. How does the AI manifest itself or present itself to the potential candidate? And this is after the filtering, yeah? And then how, like, is it an avatar? Is it just an audio voice, or is it just like represented by questions on a computer screen? And then how do we, what's the right word, customize it? Because every company is different. All those 9 things that you mentioned are going to be different for literally for every company, even if they're in the same field. Like the guys and gals that Morgan Stanley is looking for are going to be different than the guys and gals that Goldman Sachs are looking for. To be fair, I know both cultures are very different. How do you figure that out? And then how does the AI present itself to the potential candidates during this 30-minute interview?
Understand. So basically, AI comes in, we help to decide who's worth interviewing. So basically, you said that how we decide is based on the prompts company give. It's not exactly a prompt, it's they fit their job description in according to their company stage and what they do. So what we've realized is a lot of companies who were at similar stages hire in relatively similar ways, and basically look for similar candidates. So for example, for startups, you want someone who have technical depth and hopefully be able to do 2 things. For example, unit economics and coding. If you're able to do those 2 things, instead of hiring 2 people, you're able to hire 1 person instead. However, for larger companies like enterprises, they value more of communication because the company is really massive. So you can't have communication breakdowns halfway. When there's a communication breakdown, it affects the whole company in a much larger scale compared to startups. So depending on the stage of your company, what you do, and what you're hiring for, and depending on whether what your next objective is, and where you see yourself in the next couple of years, and what do you want to do, we basically let the AI know, and we train the AI with existing data to not just who you want, but who you should be able to interview. Especially because startups, our ICP is startups, and many of them don't actually know who they want and who is best for them.
So do you actually help them go through that as well? Like to help them determine who the best hires are? Do you do, like, is it helpful for them? Does AgenticHire help them write a JD? Do you know what I mean? Where like they know what the job is, you help them using generative AI or agentic AI to write what the job description is as well?
That is part of our features, especially because a lot of startups nowadays, they know they have the money to hire, they want to hire, but they don't actually know what they want to look for. So we do actually help them create JDs as well. But of course, if you know what you want, we can upload your JD and we'll find the best hire for you.
And can you go through this again for me? I think we missed part of the first question, and that is, how does the AI present itself to the candidate? Is it an avatar? Is it a humanoid thing? Or is it a voice thing? Or is it just like a bunch of questions that get asked off a computer screen?
Right now, it's text to text. So basically, you text the AI and it texts back. But in the future, we do hope to add avatars and voices as well. But it's not one of the main priorities right now, especially because with iPhones and Androids nowadays, you can simply say your voice, like talking to the phone, and you'll generate a text. But that's something we're looking for into the future. So during the interview, the AI can understand the candidate's answer in context, decide what information is missing, and based on the JD, prompt further so that you can fully understand the candidate's potential and what they did in the past, instead of because some candidates, their communication isn't the best. They are fully able to communicate what they are able to do, even though they are able to do it. For example, if you're a backend developer, you're obviously not going to be very trained in the communication skills. So it just prompts based on your past experiences and what you have done on your past projects to make sure you're the best fit for the company.
Do we really think that communication skills are more important for bigger organizations as opposed to small organizations? Is that something that people really believe? In other words, it can be way more corrosive in my mind, inside of a small organization. If you have somebody who's just really bad at communications, because the number of employees are so small that like having one bad apple could be a really bad experience for the entire company, no?
Definitely. I definitely understand where you're coming from. I've actually done research in the past couple of months with a bunch of HRs, hiring managers, startup founders, VCs, and they told me that startups and basically just startups, their communication is not the most important, but rather the technical.
They just want to get stuff done.
Yes, they have to get something up and running. Communication is not the most crucial thing, but when you have something up and running, it's where you can actually generate revenue and actually grow and share. Then for bigger companies, assuming you're not the lowest worker, if you're like a managerial position or someone who handles other people, because when you have communication issues, when not being able to communicate effectively to, let's say, 20 people, it affects much more of the company than, for example, startups, which usually are very tight. So when you don't understand something or when you do something wrong, you are able to immediately fix it, which is one of the great part about startups as well. They ship really fast and change things really fast.
How do you figure out whether, like, what kind of math or analysis is done to determine whether that AI assessment, when they're going back and forth, I presume with some kind of chatbot, right, answering questions if they're a candidate, is actually measuring somebody's real ability to do a job? Or does that happen after that process gets, after the people get filtered out and then they talk to like a real human?
We basically do a lot of fine-tuning testing with people. We are doing looking to pilot with companies right now. So we are going to test it at mass, at scale, to make sure that people who fit the criteria are not filtered out. But of course, we are not able to guarantee that if you have 20 of the best candidates, if you interview them face-to-face, we can't guarantee that all 20 will land in your pile that you should interview, but we guarantee that a large percentage of them will be able to fit the criteria. And basically, how we measure people is based on scoring consistency. So we make sure test the same candidates multiple times using slight variations with the way they text, and even the things they do to make sure the score changes and doesn't remain stagnant or doesn't have huge dips just because you have a slight word change or something like that. To make sure it doesn't. Sorry, you're saying?
No, I was gonna say, what kind of changes do you make? Not in real time, but like what kind of iterations do you make where you feel like, whether it's a startup or a larger company says, we seem to be filtering out, do you know what I mean? Where like it's not doing the right filtering. We seem to be filtering out candidates that like could have worked for us, but we filtered them out. How good are we at how good is the artificial intelligence at iterating and going, oh, we need to do better analysis on our candidate choices?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? You're saying with our system, and they are still
because
saying
every company is different, right? And how do we like? There may be candidates that get filtered out by the artificial intelligence due to bias or some other reason. And how quickly can we iterate what that sort of chat back and forth, conversation is and assessment is, so that we make sure we're getting the best candidates over time?
I would say it's more of basically putting in your companies. The more you hire, obviously the system is going to be more tailored towards who you're looking for. And because every company has a specific culture that it may not be too different from similar stages, but just something that's more uniquely their own. So we basically tailor it more towards them the more they hire. So it's going to get more consistent as it goes on. And if you're saying...
So it learns, you're saying?
Yes, it definitely learns along the way.
Go ahead. I interrupted you. I didn't let you finish. Sorry.
I was basically gonna say it learns along the way, and we tend to do as much tests as we can to make sure companies of similar stages are looking for who they want.
Got it. Do you get the sense that like doing this sort of first round analysis in a way that's automated changes the types of things that human recruiters can then focus on? And does it give them, again, the ability to hire better candidates because they can be more thoughtful about who they're hiring and they're not rushing to go through, as you said, like thousands of resumes?
I mean, it definitely helps the recruiters, and especially on the company side, because the longer you take to hire, the more the good candidates slip away, because they're not just going to one job. They are going to LinkedIn apply. They are going to put thousands of jobs, and the second the company hires them first, they're just out of the market already. So speeding up, quickening the process definitely helps you secure the candidates, making sure they don't go join other companies instead. And also this process frees up a lot of time for recruiters to do their in-depth analysis of existing candidates, and of the decrease in candidate pool, they're able to look at more of their qualities as well as look at their past projects to make sure that they're hiring the correct person. Because in the past, this year I've had a founder who said he interviewed 60 people for a role and 2 hours each. So that's a lot of time. So with AgenticHire, instead of interviewing 60 to make sure you're hiring a correct person, making sure no one good slips away, you can maybe look through 10 of the 60 who are flagged out. And with those 10, you can spend a lot more time on those people to look through their values and maybe have them attend a trial period to make sure who's the best for your company.
Got it. Okay, man. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, Martin, let's bring in Gaurav. How are you doing today? I am doing super duper. Where are you?
I'm in Singapore.
Super duper. Okay, look, it's great to have you here. Founder and CEO at StrongKeep Cybersecurity. We wanted to talk to you today about how AI-driven accessible cybersecurity can help smaller businesses reduce risk and turn security into a source of customer trust. But before we dig into that into detail, let's talk a little bit about from you what StrongKeep Cybersecurity does.
Sure. Well, StrongKeep is building a very different way of delivering cybersecurity to smaller businesses around the world. If you think about it today, I mean, cybersecurity, there's plenty of solutions out there, but they're all built for big enterprises, your big banks and big telcos. They're expensive and difficult to administer. For a small law firm with like 10, 20 people, they don't know how to use it and they don't have the budgets to be able to afford it. So we're building something quite different. We can get into what that is, but basically StrongKeep is building cybersecurity for smaller businesses.
So tell me, because I just wrote down what's the difference. So just tell me, because I get it. Like there's a lot of functionality that small businesses can't handle. Again, like you said, they can't hire 15 people. They don't have a CISO. Like all these things that they can't do necessarily that a large institution can do. They can allocate $2 million of budget to it. The board can defend it, like whatever that is. But an SMB or an SME is sitting there going like, okay, we know we have a cyber problem, but we can't afford the same things that like some big company can. What's the difference in the way you provide that to them and in the way they pay for it, but still gives them the level of security that they need and expect?
Great question. And the easiest way to understand it is with a bit of an analogy.
Please.
So if you think about it, if you have enough money and you want a dining table for your office, you hire a carpenter. A highly skilled professional comes in, cuts down a beautiful American walnut tree, polishes it, and gives you a bespoke, beautiful conference table for your house or for your room. If you don't have that much
How did you know my desk was walnut, by the way? Like that's not fair. Go ahead.
You imagine now you don't have that much money. Where do you go? You go to IKEA. And the table at IKEA has never met a carpenter or a tree in its life.
Right.
It's built from a fundamentally different set of engineering choices that lead you to creating a factory that produces flat packed solid surfaces with legs that you screw in yourself, and you buy them home in a cardboard box, and it's $30. And so the engineering choices that lead you to becoming a better carpenter and building better tables out of walnut trees are completely irrelevant to building an IKEA factory. And the whole industry is building walnut tables. I'm building an IKEA factory.
But there's a balance there too. Okay, and I want to go through this because I think you've come up with a great analogy, and I want to pronounce IKEA right because I've been pronouncing it wrong for my whole life.
Wait, did I get it wrong? Is it IKEA?
I don't know. Maybe my girlfriend needs to talk to you about this, but she told me it's IKEA, not IKEA. I'm not
She's
Swedish
totally
or whatever it is, but I'm just saying. Neither is she, by the way, but it doesn't matter. She's smarter than I am. But the point is that like when you buy that table, or in this case, when you buy that table from IKEA, you've got to take it out of the box and put it together yourself. And there is a level of complication there that's different when, as you said, like a larger cybersecurity firm, they've got 5, I'm going to use FDEs because it's just a term that people are comfortable with today. But they send the 5 guys to your shop to install all of it, set it up, to train you and do all that stuff. What's the balance? Because cyber is so important between like, I got this myself, it came in the box, but like the instructions don't seem that clear to me kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do you work around that?
Let me flip it around and explain to you in a different way.
Please.
Less than 1% of the companies in the world have a person in their job scope with the title of cybersecurity anything, like a chief information security officer, a cybersecurity person.
But less than 1% have a CISO or a CISO. I don't know how you pronounce it, but yeah.
Yeah, less than 1% of the companies in the world have a CISO. So 99% of your companies in the world don't have anybody that they can turn to assemble enterprise cybersecurity in the first place. And the only other way they can do it is to get a consultant to come in. Now, there's people around the world as well.
For sure, because it's so hard to do. But go ahead.
No, so even if you wanted to pay for that person to come down, those 5 people to come and assemble the table for you, you can't find it. You can't afford it because those people are also expensive. And consultancy is an extremely expensive way to deliver essentially a product.
Yeah, very. So
go ahead. The goal is to basically make the instructions for screwing in the legs of a table so easy that anybody can do it. And right now, our rate is like from the point at which somebody pays me on Stripe to the point where a nurse on her lunch break has all of her devices set up. That's 7 minutes. And we've pegged it at a nurse on her lunch break because that's who we're serving. It's people who are busy, who have another job, who have never wanted to think about cybersecurity, but they know that it's a thing they have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's going to love you, by the way, because she's a nurse. So when she listens to this, she's just going to be like, yeah, exactly.
They're busy.
They're super duper busy. But how do you, so again, consultancy is expensive, but cybersecurity is getting more and more complicated as the days go by. Like it just is. And again, I talked about this previously to one of our partners, Boomi, but also one of our guests. The surfaces through which cybersecurity can become a problem just seem to multiply every day. How does an SMB decide, or how do you help them decide which security problems they have to solve immediately and which ones they can be like, we'll get to that later kind of thing? Like, I don't know how that works precisely, but you know what I mean, right?
No, I do. And if you think, okay, so let's say you abstract now the problem of cybersecurity away from all of the terms in the marketing lingo.
Yep.
There's roughly 4 things that can go wrong. Number 1, you download something dangerous. Number 2, you click on something dangerous.
Yep.
Number 3, your credentials, your password and username are weak or stolen. And number 4, your systems are poorly configured. You didn't patch it, or you didn't close a hole somewhere in your SharePoint or whatever it is. Those are the only 4 things that can conceptually go wrong. And whether you're using agentic AI or you're a state-sponsored attacker, you're finding a way around those 4 things. Again, you go back to IKEA. You don't
Both of us are trying. We're trying, right?
You don't need to have a table that can withstand the weight of an elephant. You just need a flat surface, because the alternative for these guys is not that they get a weaker table. The alternative is that they don't have a table. And the vast majority of small businesses around the world don't have any cybersecurity. And when we look at the incidents that we see across kind of data breaches and so on, most of these companies, it's username and password 123. There's no antivirus or EDR. The basics aren't in place. I'm also going to make a second assumption.
Go ahead.
If you're running a bakery or a small kind of clinic somewhere, it's unlikely that a state-sponsored attacker is going to waste a very sophisticated attack on you. They're going to save it for the banks. So you're going to get a bunch of attacks, and you're going to get a bunch of malware and a bunch of phishing emails that basics could have prevented. And so for an SME, all we need to do is get them to a level of baseline hygiene, which today they don't even have. They're eating dinner on the floor. They don't even have an IKEA table.
We're going to just do this the entire time we're talking to each other, aren't we?
This is
you love this stuff.
Yeah.
It must drive your family crazy. I love a good analogy. But in all seriousness, right, like this state-sponsored cybersecurity stuff is a real problem. And because you live in Singapore, I live in Thailand, like the surrounding countries are building, not the countries themselves, but they're allowing the building of these sort of massive warehouses filled with sophisticated computer technology that are taking the most sophisticated LLMs and using them. And again, in the old days, right, you're right. Somebody running a bakery, probably if they just had the minimum amount of security, just the basics set up, they didn't have to worry as much about their security problems. One, because there just wasn't enough money in the till to matter, but also applying the technology to target them specifically was just too hard. But today, these sophisticated sort of multinational, don't want to call them terrorist groups, but just like cyber hacker groups and but they're not state sponsored per se necessarily, right? But these cyber hacker groups, they don't care who they attack, because on the margin, if they make $100 from you or $200 from you, and they do that 1 million times, it's still $200 million. At what point does cybersecurity does it flip the bit where it's just like, even the basics aren't good enough? And I know you said like only 1% of people 1% of companies have CISOs there, and that most SMBs don't even have like password controls. I get that. And look, I worked at big companies too. And like in most people's, and I know people whose like Netflix password is like their name and Netflix. And you're just like, that's not going to work. Like that's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So at what point does the bit flip where it's like, we need to have a little bit more sophisticated security stuff put in place, so that even though we're not getting targeted per se, that automated targeting is going to reach us at some point. Even if it steals $100 from me, from a cash flow perspective as a small business, that's going to matter.
Yeah. No, great questions. I'll answer it in 3 ways. The first is that attackers aren't going to waste. So every time an attacker uses a particular tactic, if it's a sophisticated tactic, we call it like a 0-day. It's an exploit in a tool that nobody else has seen before. It's wasted. So they're not going to waste those sophisticated attacks on a small target. They're going to use them for very big national targets. So the type of attacks that they use on smaller companies are the ones that actually are preventable, are blockable with basics, because they're going for a mass spray and pray. They want to hit 1,000 companies and see which of the 300 of those 1,000 companies don't have any controls, and let's just go for those. So that's the first big point. The second big point is that you are absolutely right that the attackers are using AI. We're now at a point in the world where the defenders can use AI as well. And the challenge is for enterprises, it's really complex to introduce AI as a defensive tool because of enterprise procurement and controls and risk and governance. But for smaller businesses, the cost of building cybersecurity and operating it 24/7 with AI, which is what we do, has suddenly dropped very, very low. So I can watch a small bakery 24/7 against any sort of weird activity that was not possible a year ago. And we had a case 2 weeks ago where some guy was playing around with AI who was vibe coding something, and he got tricked by a phishing site on AI that lured him into typing in some sort of command in his terminal, which essentially ran a virus. Our system detected it, it blocked it, And within like the few hours that we saw the thing going live, it had like 1,000 attempts to send his passwords out to different websites, and we blocked all of them. There is no way 3 years ago I would have been able to block 1,000 different connections without some sort of AI-powered tool. But today we can, and so a small company can. And it's a children's tuition company. They're not like a sophisticated big bank or anything.
God.
But the good news is that it's possible now. So
yeah, no, I love the fact that it's possible. I'm just wondering, like, what type of thing would have had to gone to a programmer who is, or not even a programmer, but somebody who was vibe coding? And I'm the reason why I close my eyes is I'm trying to think about what happened while I'm talking at the same time.
Exactly what happened. So this guy was trying to build an app. It didn't work. He Googled, he left AI and Googled for a solution. He found a phishing page, and the phishing page said, oh, to fix your problem, type in this command in your terminal, sudo curl, and then a URL. Sudo. So bypass all of the protections that you have in place, sudo curl this in and execute it. And it bypassed one layer, but my AI detected, hey, you have never contacted this host before, and suddenly you're sending 1,000 things to them. This is weird. We're blocking it and we're shutting it down. So that's the possibilities now. And I think we're now at that point where small companies have that opportunity, and it's almost an obligation for me to build something with it.
So do you want to explain to people who don't know what sudo means? I was a Unix admin, sysadmin, which probably surprises most people. But that's what it says. It's like, hey, let's just bypass everything. I want to turn into a super user, which means like I can do anything else. It's like a Unix god at some level, saying like I now have access to everything, maybe just for this command.
Yeah. And if you're not a developer and
you wouldn't know what that means.
Code, you have no idea what sudo means, because the truth is the people who are vibe coding now, I mean, they've got great intentions. They have no idea what it is they're typing into the terminal. And every time they click yes, or /goal and like build until it's done, they don't know what they're clicking yes to. So AI, I mean, my own view, the worst thing that AI has done is trained a behavioral habit where we're telling it to build something. We have no idea what it's doing, and we're just clicking yes to all of its suggestions. And once in a while, it's going to do something really dangerous.
Yeah. So this is the other question I wanted to ask you. In your experience, just based on the data that you're gathering, which is something else, and don't let me forget about this, right? Because I want to talk about that too, because you are getting a lot of feedback from your users too. I'm curious, like, what their various problems are. But how are even small enterprises, like bigger companies, have a different problem with this, right? Just because they have more people. But how do you have this SMB or an SME tell people when you're vibe coding? Do you know what I mean? Like if you're told to, you know how like your mom would tell you, like if everybody's jumping off the Empire State Building, you're gonna jump, like you're just gonna do it without checking first? I'm sorry, I have sympathy for the guy with the sudo problem, but like, didn't he just go like, I don't know what that means, so I'm not just gonna type it in? Kind of like, how do you convince people when they're vibe coding that they should check stuff?
Yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle to try and educate. And cybersecurity's done this before. We've tried to educate people about passwords for like 30 years, and it doesn't work. So I've given up on the idea of educating people.
Okay.
And I started to build infrastructure. And if you think about it, like having more doctors didn't cure cholera. Building the infrastructure of sewers cured cholera.
Yeah, fair enough. Making people cleaner just serve cholera. Yeah, I got it.
And so building national level. So in Singapore, we have a thing called SingPass, and I was involved in that project when I was the government. Building national level biometric authentication fixes password problems. Teaching and putting up more posters about password 123 doesn't solve the problem.
No, it doesn't. Yeah,
for this vibe coding issue, my solution is not to teach the guy that sudo is bad. It's to put an infrastructure that prevents sudo from doing the dumbest things it could do. And that's where we come in.
So where else does vibe coding create? Because this is an interesting thing, right? A lot of people are doing it. Where else does vibe coding create problems, and what are the solutions you have to that? Like, what is that infrastructure that you put around it? And again, not just for vibe coding, but it's just a good example and a good proxy for everything else that's taking place. What kind of stuff do you put around it to make sure that you can disintermediate these types of problems?
So the same 4 things. You download something, you click on something, your credentials or your configuration. So we have something that's basically an EDR. So we use Cortex XDR Pro. It's kind of a slightly different way of using it, but we've kind of abstracted away the complexity of the UI and delivered the protection of it. So when you curl in something that does something that looks weird, it executes a process that it shouldn't, we block that. We have a DNS firewall. And I don't believe in hardware firewalls anymore because I've gone to so many small businesses where they don't patch it, they don't update it. It is the entry point for an attacker. Like, why?
It's like changing the lock on your door and leaving the key outside. You're just like, what's the point, right?
Exactly. So we do DNS firewall. I control what's blocked, and I manage it centrally. And wherever you guys are, if you're surfing in a Starbucks, I still protect the links that you click. We have a password manager with 2FA built in, and if you're If you're accessing
two-factor authentication for people that aren't up with the lingo. Sorry, go ahead.
So multi-factor authentication built in.
Yep.
If you're accessing a website where you don't have a password stored, that's dangerous to me. Then the last thing is we do, we scan your servers. So in those 4 things, when this guy was doing that AI thing, he sudoed, which means he bypassed the device level protections I had in place. It flagged up that, hey, this is weird, but I'm letting it go because the user commanded me to do it.
Yeah,
I'm still flagging it up. I'm still flagging it up. It's weird.
Yep.
So my XDR picked it up. My DNS firewall was like, hey, he is sending a packet of data to 1,000 different sources within an hour. Nope, not going to happen. Looks weird, blocking it. And that's what saved this guy. And honestly, if we had not blocked that, he would be sitting in some sort of data privacy governance forum right now, paying a fine of $30,000-$40,000. So
he'd be divorced. His kids wouldn't talk to him. Like, he's got a nightmare happening.
Yeah, but it would be bad. And then the third thing is like credentials. People have all of these reused credentials. AI is starting to steal credentials as well. So we start to see agents taking on the role of their user, sometimes without authorization and doing things that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
And the last one is a whole bunch of holes in your software. The thing that I'm most worried about for vibe coding is that you're going to have well-intentioned people building like their gym booking software.
Yep.
A vibe coded thing, and it's not going to be secure. It's not going to be robust. It's going to be full of holes because 60% of all vibe coded software has vulnerabilities in it. And the bad guys are just going to have fun with it.
Are you talking about that thing that happened in Australia?
Yeah. And it's not even the bad guys.
No, that guy's a good guy. He was just like, hey, can you change my reservation? They were like, sure, let me try.
Yeah. And you're seeing more and more of these stories where the agent is like, yeah, let me help you with that task that you asked me to do. But the agent does it in a way that's unfortunately illegal. It breaks into somebody else's system. So you have these issues. And this is the world we're going to live in. You know, you've got bad guys, and then you've got rogue agents that do things that are a bit problematic.
So this is the other thing, right? As agentic AI becomes more ubiquitous, and again, I don't work at a big company. I mean, I work at a big company, but it's my own company. Do you know what I mean? So like, I don't know what's going on inside larger institutions, but frankly, I don't know what's going on inside of SMEs or SMBs either. But I'm presuming that as every day passes, there's the use of agentic AI increases, but it also increases like the security risks and the security surfaces through which this stuff can happen. And we don't have to, like, we can spend time talking about MCP and API access and stuff like that too, but you're dealing with more third-party access as well.
Yeah.
How, like, if you're scanning the servers for this stuff and you see an agent, as you said, take over somebody's credentials, like what level of autonomy or authority do you have as StrongKeep? And what do you have to do to get the trust to be able to do this, to be like, we shut that down, give us a call if you need that thing. But what if that shutdown happens at like 3 o'clock in the morning? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you balance all that stuff?
A couple of things. The first one is that SMBs are far more aggressive in their use of AI than enterprises. Full stop. Not even close.
Because
enterprises have procurement. Like if a
you
big
said this
bank,
before. Go ahead. Yeah.
If a big bank wants to deploy a model, like good luck. You're gonna have 6 months going through POCs and trials.
Do you think it's still that long? You think it's really still that long?
Because by the time the staff who's at the counter gets the chatbot in his system, that's like a 3 to 6 month journey at the fastest. And people can speed it up, but it's still going to take that long. Whereas for the SMB, if you want to deploy Claude to your customers on Thursday, let's start on Wednesday afternoon. Like, it's faster. The procurement cycle and the restrictions around their behavior are much lower. So that's the first big thing. The second thing is that I operate on a very different philosophy around cybersecurity for small businesses, and it is a slightly paternalistic one. In that I believe you don't have a cybersecurity person in your team. You specifically paid me to keep you safe. I will keep you safe from yourself.
From yourself.
And the biggest risk I have is that I have false positives. So I accidentally block that were actually legitimate.
That's why I asked, right?
And I'm okay with that. And my customers are okay with that because
they
don't know any better.
But
then they block this, and then they're like, oh, was this okay? Was it not okay? Oh, you told me it's not okay. And once in a while, I have customers who argue with me. Oh, I can give you this case study. So last week, we blocked the file. And the file name was, and I kid you not, in all capital letters, please disable your antivirus before running this .exe.
Stealyourmoney.com kind of thing. Yeah.
No, and the guy was like, hey, I need to run this file. I was like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
You really don't need to run this file. I was like, but it's in capital letters, and I downloaded it, and I need to run it. I was like, no and no, and you will find another way to get whatever. It was some sort of PDF reader, I think.
Right.
I'm like, but this is the behavior of smaller companies, because you can't argue against the guy who's a baker. Like, he doesn't know anything about this technology. He's not reading the news that we read. He lives in a very different universe from all of us.
For sure.
And so trying to argue with him about what's legitimate, what's not, isn't useful. I just like, look, our role is to keep you safe, and we're keeping you safe.
So how do you stay on top of all this as a company? And again, I'm asking because I've told this story before, but like I go to the gym every day, and there's this guy in the gym who definitely works in cybersecurity because he told me. And when he found out that I have conversations about this, he opened up a little bit and he was like, it's exhausting. And I'm presuming he's working for larger companies, but still you seem fresh. You know what I mean? You seem like you're getting a decent amount of sleep. You seem kind of happy. He seems like overwhelmed. Like, how do you handle it if you're doing all this sort of disintermediation, is that automated as well?
Okay, the answer is it is automated. There's enough intelligence baked into our system that I don't have to do it manually.
Right.
But the broader concept is I love this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, clearly I can tell in your voice, like, this is not your job, this is your life. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so I did this in the military. I did this in the government. I teach this at university. And
where do you teach?
In NTU, it's a local.
NTU. I got it. No, I got it.
Adjunct at NTU.
Yep.
I research this stuff. I'm an enterprise advisor to the biggest banks in Asia. So I love this stuff because keeping people safe online actually is a really rewarding mission. And yes, it sucks. But the truth is there are bad people in the world. And if I can make good people a little bit safer, I think it's worth the effort.
Perfect. I want one more thing. I know we're going to go a little bit over time, but just deal with me for a second. Sure, what types of things have you learned in building building the software and serving your clients that you hadn't necessarily thought about, when you sort of had product version 1.0 that you've then gone out and implemented that are important? I don't mean like little things like, oh, I should have spelled, you know what I mean? Like that are important, and then you've gone out and implemented. Obviously you give access to this to everybody. What are like a couple of things that you've learned? You're like, oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Oh, the great one. Sophistication versus simplicity. All cybersecurity professionals, like carpenters, we're so proud of our handiwork. And I was like, I'm going to block this. I'm going to do this fancy stuff. I'm going to use this technology to keep people safe. And I was so excited by the technology that I started telling all my customers, this is all the cool things we do. And they were like, we don't care. I get it. One of my, I pitched to an investor who actually turned into a customer after that. And he was like, look, I want it to be like a toilet. Like there's the Venturi principle and the Bernoulli effect and all of these fancy things that causes the pipes to take the poop away. I don't care. I want to know where the flush button is. And when I press it, everything goes away. And if it floods, I need to know who to call. Those are the only two things I need to know about your product. Does it work all the time? And if anything goes wrong, what do I do? Everything else is your problem, not mine. So our engineering wasn't about the sophistication, it was about the simplicity. How do I take a complicated domain, which takes years to learn, and make it as easy as pressing a button so that that nurse at lunch can finish all of it and continue her lunch after 7 minutes? That's the task. And that was the thing that surprised me the most, because I thought people would be so impressed by how clever we were. They weren't. They were impressed by how easy it was.
Got it. I just want to say that I want every part of my toilet automated. But I do appreciate the analogy. Okay, man. Gaurav, you were awesome. Thank you so much for just being so generous with your time, for being so open about this. And I said this in passing, but I want to say it again. I love meeting people that don't have jobs, but that have lives, and that their lives are sort of not filtered through, but like come out in the work that they do because they care about it so much. And I can always tell the difference between some guy that has a job and some guy that has a life. You have a life and a passion, and that's actually super cool. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I really enjoyed the conversation as well.
Anytime. It's my pleasure. Bye for now, man.
Take care.
Okay, Martin, let's bring in Julia. Julia. I can't hear you. I'm guessing you're muted. Martin, I cannot hear Julia right now. Julia, can you hear me? Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Thank you, Martin. Julie, can you say something? I can hear you now. You're lagging a little bit, but yeah, you're lagging a little bit, but let's see what we can get. Julie, it's great to have you in the show.
Likewise, I'm very happy to be here.
Now, we wanted to talk to you, obviously, about how real-world asset tokenization can change the way business finance, manage, and distribute ownership of physical assets. Maybe just tell us a little bit about Sabai protocol before we do that.
Yeah. Sabai protocol, we are on the market for 5 years now.
Oh, wow.
So we started actually in the beginning when this whole tokenization and RWA just started being built, in the world. Now we are a full cycle white label solution for mid-market segment. So we're working with asset owners, with different businesses worldwide, helping them to structure their businesses technically and legally for tokenization.
So talk to me about why you originally got into RWA and the Sabai protocol, and what's the problem you're fundamentally trying to solve here? And maybe not just talk about Sabai itself, but talk about like this whole concept of tokenizing real world assets. What's the problem we're trying to solve, and how does this solve it?
Yeah, so actually our project, it didn't start, just as a startup looking for some opportunities in Web3. We started as a part of a big development real estate business in Thailand. So one of the biggest developers in Thailand and Phuket got an idea during COVID that they want to start selling their real estate through crypto with the help of tokenization. At that time, 5 years ago, there were no solutions on the market. So we built an internal team and created that product for the real business. And we implemented it, we launched it, it started working, the distribution started, and after that, different other businesses started asking me how we created the product and if we can do something similar to them. So actually, Sabai, in its current positioning and business model, it's from a request from the market, from real businesses. Because actually, in terms of tokenization, now there are like two parts. On one side, you can, if you're a big institutional business, you can work with such companies and platforms like Securitize, for example. But you can do that if you have a lot of capital, if you have time, if you're really huge. Or on the other hand, you can build your own solution, like do your own. If
Right.
you're a small business, where you need your own expertise, you need to build your own team, understand everything, learn everything. Though, as I'm sure you know, that in terms of knowledge about RWA and tokenization, there is no almost information on the market where to read it unless you do your own mistakes. So this is where we saw the gap, that actually for the middle market, when businesses just want to integrate this opportunity to their current structure, there are no solutions on the market. And this is what we're solving in this stage. And in terms of where we're going next, what I see, because most of the businesses and companies who come to us with a request, they want not only the structuring part, they also need the distribution. They need somehow to enter new markets, to raise capital. So this is the second problem, the distribution. And I believe that it is also possible to solve it, but not within just one project, but as a partnership with different financial companies who provide capital raising opportunities. So if we do that, if we integrate two parts together, it can actually not just provide a product for the businesses, but it can actually solve the main problem. And
so can I ask this? What was the genesis of the reason why this large Thai developer wanted to tokenize their real estate assets? In other words, what problem were they trying to solve that tokenization could solve, but just regular distribution, regular financing, regular just real estate business couldn't solve for them? And then how does tokenization solve it for them, right? And do you know what I mean? Because I'm just trying to figure out like where it fits into their value chain, where they were sitting around going, oh, we have a problem, but RWA, the tokenization of RWA can solve this for us.
Yeah, sure. With this company, they got that idea during COVID. Because before COVID, they were selling mostly 99% of all the sales of real estate were through physical touch with a client, offline. And when the COVID started, people couldn't come to Thailand anymore. And if we talk, for example, about Thailand, you can't buy some property or real estate by crypto there. It's banned. It's not allowed. So this is how they got an idea. Okay, we need to accept somehow payments through crypto. So first of all, they implemented some exchanges they started working with, and they sold real estate through crypto for about $30 million during COVID. And so the founder of that development company, he realized that, okay, people want to invest through crypto, and what if we give them instrument also for share investments? Yeah, this should be also interesting because for Asian market, it's not that easy to attract investors through, for example, Europe, because for Europe it's a very far distant companies and countries. People don't know how business works there, and mostly they are not ready at once to invest like 100, 300, $1 million into some real estate. They want to try. And tokenization gives that opportunity. It's for that company. But I would say that, first of all, we don't recommend tokenization in any case. So there are different requests from different businesses. Some are coming because the cost of money in their country is very high. For example, I had a request from Brazil, and the cost of money for them in the country is about 2% per month. So it's
borrowing
very
money,
expensive.
borrowing money, you mean? Borrowing
money.
money.
Yeah, borrowing money. Very expensive. So they're just considering, are there some opportunities to make it more efficient for the business?
And again, how does tokenization help them make that more efficient for the business? If, like, given the Brazil example, if they need to borrow money in Brazil, like you said, it's 2% a month, so it's it's 24% a year. Like, it's very expensive. But how does tokenization solve that problem for them? Or is it a crypto solution that's solving it for them that's different than tokenization?
Yeah, it's because all the main transactions happen through Web3, through crypto. It makes it cheaper because you don't need for money to work only in fiat.
Right.
That's why for that case, it solves that problem. But I can't say that because we didn't implement that product. It was just like a request. Yeah, they are searching for opportunities. Yeah, if we talk about the Thailand client, it allowed them to launch one more funnel for sales abroad for their Thailand property. And I'd say that within 1 year since the product was launched, we have tokenized for them around $3 million in real estate, and half of them was sold for distribution for just retail investors, by just small average ticket like $5,000. So it's like a new funnel scaling.
And is that due to so does the tokenization allow them to do sort of fragmented sales as well?
Yeah.
So they can do fractional sales,
Yes.
And they found that to be successful. I'm guessing that a lot of these sales are in China. Am I wrong, or is most of this in Europe? Like, what does it look like?
In Europe?
I'm asking, like, where are most of these fractional sales taking place? Is it in China? Is it in Europe? Is it in the United States? Is it in the rest of Asia? I'm just curious, like, where these retail investors are.
For them, mostly in Asia and also in post-Soviet Union countries, because currently they sell a lot to Poland, to Ukraine, because the founder himself is Ukrainian. So people feel more trust. And we always recommend when company wants to launch tokenization, first markets you should look at are those markets where you have success with your classical sales. And after that, just to scale it to new markets, because of course it's more difficult.
How important is liquidity for these assets, and how do we make sure that these assets that are tokenized, these RWAs that are tokenized, actually have the right level of liquidity and also market visibility, so that if somebody buys it and they want to sell it, they know where that market is. Do you know what I mean? They know where that two-sided market is.
Yeah. Of course, it's like the main question, the liquidity, because
For sure.
any investor who puts money through tokenization, he asks the main questions. Okay, how can I be sure that my money are safe, and how can I exit when I want to exit? So these are the questions which should be answered before the product is launched. In the case of this Thailand client, we implemented two solutions. One is a secondary market for the people to be able to trade the tokens during their life cycle. The second one is from the very beginning, we put that exit mechanism when the real estate is built. There is a real estate agent, broker, who finds the buyer on the market on a current market price, and all the investors can receive back not only the body of the investment, but they can also earn on appreciation of that property on the real market. So first of all, of course, the liquidity, it doesn't happen because of tokenization. It happens if the project itself is valuable, is interesting, if the developer keeps the promises, if the market is growing on that part of the world, in that country where we implement it. So the project itself is on the first place. Tokenization is just an instrument, because I can say that most of the requests we receive about tokenization are from some companies or projects which are only on idea. Yeah, we want to launch some business and we want to attract investment or buyers through tokenization. But I don't believe that it can work that way, because for people to invest through tokenization, the product should be trustworthy. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how have we found, after you said you did $3 million worth of issuance for the company in Thailand, how have we found even the perception of liquidity on this issuance after it's happened?
So now the project is still ongoing.
Yep.
So it's live. All investors are there. Someone who wants to exit, they exit through secondary market, or the developer also provides the buyback option on the primary price. If someone wants to exit earlier, then the exit should be. If not, in the end of the construction, it will be 2028. The developer sells that property and provides liquidity for all the investors. So there are like secondary market, buyback, and buy to the real, sell to the real market. So each investor can choose different opportunity and feel safety with this process.
What has to happen, or what has to be true for other developers, not just the original one, to say, we saw this example, we like what the outcome is? Like, what has to happen for them to say, we want to do the same thing?
I would say that they should, first of all, be ready to work with marketing and sales, to understand, and to accept that tokenization as a technology won't attract investments. And the result we had with this developer, it's not because we did something amazing. It's because we, together with the developer, launched different marketing funnels through some investment clubs. They implemented tokenization in their day-to-day sales process. So when new investors were coming through their marketing funnels to buy the whole apartment but don't have the full budget, their sales team offers them tokenization. So, but it's some level of maturity, to work also with this product. So I would say that this is actually the main.
And are you seeing other real estate, and not real estate investors, other real estate developers becoming interested in a product like this, or has that not happened yet?
Sure, we see a lot of potential. After the Thailand product, we have also implemented similar solution for one Cambodia developer. They are launching now, so the product is ready, and now they're preparing to start the marketing.
Awesome.
We also, now currently launching 2 projects in Europe already, not only with real estate. One, it's the fund. The second one is bond tokenization. So we see a lot of potential, and we started working very actively with marketing on B2B since February. And since February till now, I have received each month, it's around from 150 to 200 requests from businesses about tokenization. Lots. We have lots of requests, people leaving their contacts to talk about tokenization. Of course, conversion is very low because mostly they are looking for investment. This is what I talked before. Maturity is the main. So if they know nothing about tokenization, if on that stage they don't understand how it works and they're not ready to do sales and marketing, to work on a product, it just won't have any result for them. So, and this kind of interest for tokenization, I see maybe 1 year, even 1 year ago, when I had some negotiations or some meetings with real estate developers or other businesses about tokenization, I had to prove to them, that tokenization is something worth considering for their business. Now it's the opposite. They come and they say why they consider tokenization. So I see that it's growing hugely. So I believe that within the nearest 1-2 years, tokenization should become more common, because the main challenge we all are trying to solve is the distribution. So it's not about businesses. Businesses already understand, but the retail investors, people still feel that this instrument, they don't know it. They don't know if it's safe. So it's not something common for the world. So this is the main which will help. And when it happens, also for businesses, it will be easier to implement it to their structure, because they don't need, to teach all their retail investors how it works and that it's worth considering this type of investment instrument.
Got it. Okay, Julia, thank you so much for spending overtime with us today. I really appreciate it. Very interesting conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. I'm very happy to be here. Have a great day.
It's my pleasure. Bye for now. Okay, Martin, let's bring in our final guest for today, Alister Wood. Alister. I am doing well. How are you doing today?
So, can't complain.
Super duper. Thank you so much for joining the show. We want to talk to you about how intelligent workplace management tech can help businesses make workplaces more efficient and easier to operate. But first, tell us a little bit more about VisitUs, and then we can put stuff into perspective.
Sure. So VisitUs is a visitor management system. It's something that we designed around 10 years ago now. And
Okay.
it helps workplaces understand who exactly is in their building. It's fairly common for most people to say, I know who's in here in terms of staff, employees, but typically a workplace won't necessarily know who a visitor is that's signed in, or who's actually in their building at a time. So that's where we help kind of bring it all together. So we have a workplace full of employees and also visitors, and we can give them a list of everyone who's on site, especially if there's something like an emergency, you need to do an evacuation. A lot of current workplaces generally just don't know who's there. So that's where we fill that gap.
So what kind of businesses are using this type of service where they're just the volume of visitors is just so high that they need to be concerned about who's in the building and then what they're doing? Like what kind, is it a gym that's there, or is it like a financial services institution, or is it a place where lots of sales get done? Like what kind of business is it?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. With visitor management, it actually is across a lot of different industries. There are some pretty, big industries like retail, but a lot of the customers that we see are actually government. So government offices, as well as anywhere that has a nice office space, they might want to give a nicer visitor experience. And the first interaction that a person has with a business is typically that reception area.
Yep.
And that's where they've got the opportunity to show off their brand, to show that they're actually a modern workplace, and they automate those functions. So that's where we typically sit. Any workplace reception you've seen, either manufacturing, logistics, that's exactly where VisitUs is.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that the software for VisitUs gets integrated into the reception area? And like, does this work for hotel? Do you know what I mean? Like a hotel business where like that's the whole business is just like welcoming visitors into the business, or even for just like buildings that have multiple companies in it where you go down, you walk in, you're like, I want to go to the 12th floor because I want to see company X. And they're like, yeah, whatever, type your phone number in here and then just like do your thing. How does it make the experience better as well?
So realistically, we're not necessarily for hotels. Hotels have their own sort of welcoming service. It's normally a person-to-person interaction where they want to give you a room key and tell you about the local area.
Fair enough.
With what visitor management does is it can help a receptionist create a more efficient flow. So when they sign in and they type their name in, or they use facial recognition to sign straight in, which is one of our advanced features at VisitUs, what it will do is it will automatically notify the correct person that they're there for the meeting, and then they don't have to have the receptionist phone around trying to say, Jim's here to see you. The system takes care of all of that, and then it records that in a digital database, so you have a record of everyone who's on site. So what it does is it makes the whole process more, I guess, efficient, so that the visitor can just sit back, relax, wait for their host to arrive. The host knows exactly who you are, what you look like, and they can give a warm welcome.
What other sort of data analysis gets done on this, right? Because if you have this information, so if you have facial recognition, which is relatively easy technology to do today, right?
Yep.
If I've got like a regular meeting with somebody every week, or somehow like this customer is becoming more and more important to me, they come into my building, it's an unattended reception, let's say, they get an automatic pass that lets them come up to my floor. Like, what other kind of data analysis gets done on this so I can get a better sense of not just who's coming, but how often they come, how long they come, what my sales team is, like all these things? Does that get served as well?
Yeah, so one of the core things that we found with a visitor system is you get a lot of data, and each customer will use that system to their own requirements. So some people might ask for like a full induction to occur during sign-in, whereas others realistically may only want to know the room number or the phone number. It really does depend on what the customer's looking for. But what's really interesting is the way that you can manipulate that data to find the results you're looking for. So one of the key integrations we have, for example, is Salesforce. So we can say if a person signs in and they're here to see a salesperson, we want to make sure that that's in our leads database.
Yep.
We can also then create customized reports. So using AI, we can say, tell me what it is you're looking for from the data, and it will extract just that information that you need.
How does it, or does it integrate with what I'll call internal company meeting room management. Do you know what I mean? So like I would go to a company sometimes like, there are no meeting rooms available. And I'm like, you knew I was coming like a month ago. Do you know what I mean? So how does it integrate with that as well? So that when your guest arrives, again, if you're making your guest experience better, that when the guest arrives, they're actually like, there's a meeting room ready for them, like all those other little things that you want to make your guest visit better, not just at reception, but for the meeting itself as well.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one, and it's something that we have to be very careful not to overlap on tools, because some tools are better specializing in one area. So the way that we approach that problem is that we kind of work hand in hand with meeting booking room tools, so that we say, actually, if you book a meeting room, which you would have traditionally done anyway, if you copy in the visitor system into your meeting, we will automatically pre-register that visitor into the system, send them a welcome email, ask them to complete their details prior to arrival. So then as soon as they arrive, they can be streamlined straight through. We know exactly what meeting they're part of. We know who to notify as soon as they've arrived.
Is there a safety issue here as well that companies are concerned about? Do you know what I mean? Just having like random people walking around the office. I've noticed this too. Like there are plenty of places that I've been to where like our partners, I'll like the reception will know me. So I'll just walk into the office, but the rest of the people are like, who is this dude just walking around? Do you know what I mean? Are there safety issues that people are concerned about too? And how does VisitUs help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really does depend again. So for depending on the customer, for our government contracts, typically they will ask for a photo to be taken during that sign-in process. And that's something that a visitor logbook can't do. You know, you can write Mickey Mouse on a book and then you're straight in the door. So what we do is we use that camera to make sure we take a picture, and then we double check to make sure the person's face is visible throughout that. And we send that directly to the host for them to be aware of exactly who that person is that's signing in. So then that way there's no one just randomly walking in without verified credentials.
And, you know, sometimes when you go to a workplace, they'll give you, I don't know what you call it, like a rental lanyard. Do you know what I mean? With like that sort of ID on it. Does it integrate with that as well? Is there a barcode? Like, how does all that stuff work?
Yeah, so I mean, I can't speak for all systems. There are different variations of integrations with that. We do have digital Apple Wallet passes and Google Wallet passes that you can actually save onto your device, which is great for like returning visitors. We do also have things like a mobile app that allow you to be able to sign in to any location that uses the VisitUs system just from their phone by clicking the button, because you've already verified your credentials.
Right.
And then you do get the old school printed badge that you can stick into a lanyard that shows your picture clear as day with your name, so that anybody who sees you walking around, they can easily see that you've signed in and who you're there to see.
So I always have this online to offline problem. Can you help me? So sometimes like when I go on a business trip, I don't have data access in certain places. Like I need Wi-Fi, and in some buildings there's not Wi-Fi. Is there an offline to online thing here, or vice versa, where if I have that pass, whether it's in Apple or wherever, I can then access it? Because I do go some places for like 2 or 3 days. I get a pass issued from the reception, but you know what I mean? Like I put it in my pocket, or I have to remember it to scan the sort of elevator thing to get upstairs. There's a way to do this online to offline, so I don't need connectivity outside of my hotel.
Yeah, so that's why we offer multiple ways of signing in. So the Apple Pass, as an example, has your GPS location of the office built into that pass. So as soon as you walk up there, just like your boarding pass or your cinema ticket, it shows up on your screen ready to go, so you can scan it on the system. But having other alternative options like your facial recognition, using a phone number, for example, helps returning visitors sign in super fast if they've got data or no data.
Got it. Now, and how about like, you know, some companies have contractors as opposed to full-time employees. Where does VisitUs fall into like helping them manage their contractors as well? Or is it more just for managing real visitors? You know what I mean? Because that contractor could just be coming to set up catering for a day or two. Does that work as well?
Yeah, so there are obviously dedicated contractor sign-in systems, well, not necessarily sign-in systems, but contractor systems. If you're looking for really heavy, in-depth contractor management, VisitUs isn't the answer for you. But if you're looking for something where you do have contractors, where you need to do inductions, make sure that you've checked all of their credentials, that's definitely something we can do. So when a person signs in, they can choose what type of sign-in. So are they a visitor, a contractor, a staff member? And then we give them a different sign-in flow. So that would mean, so for a contractor, we need you to see a video, for example, and a PDF, and we need you to sign off. And then the system will record when you did that last and make sure that when it's up for renewal, we're going to ask you to do that again.
Got it. And before I let you go, like, where do you think we're heading with workplace management? Like, where is it creating the most meaningful change, and where do you think it's going to create the most meaningful change going forward for institutions that are using this type of technology?
Realistically, at the moment, people don't know who's in their building. They do not have a clue at the moment who's there. So
is it still that bad? Really? Like, people are just like clueless who's in?
Yeah, because the biggest hang up is around the security. Typically, an access control system will allow you to assign a person to a plastic card. And that's easy because you know who they are. How do we capture the people we don't know? And things like facial recognition help us pre-register a person before they arrive. And as soon as they walk in the door, we're trying to make that sign-in process as effortless as possible so that you have visibility of who's on site. So for the future of visitor management, the idea is to make it as efficient as possible without having people having to fill in loads of details each time and waiting around in reception.
And how about for big events like the Singapore FinTech Festival, like for a 4-day period of time, they have a lot of visitors. Do you know what I mean? Is there a way to integrate with that as well? Or is that just or is event management just like a different animal?
It realistically is a different animal. Yeah, entirely.
Okay. Yep. Just curious. Okay. Alister, thank you so much for spending so much time with us today. I really appreciate it. Very interesting stuff.
No worries.
Say goodbye, man. Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Yep. Cheers, man.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We love everybody participating. That's it today for ATP Insights. Thank you again so much for joining us. Give us a thumbs up on the video. As we always say, it costs you nothing and it helps us out in the algorithm. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You would be joined by 100 and something thousand, many other people. Follow us on all of our socials, on X, which is growing quickly, on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And as always, comment. Definitely comment and be as interactive as possible. We love answering your questions. My name is Michael Waitze. I'm going to say goodbye for now.